All right, good evening, board members, Dr. Cruz, district staff, visitors, and guests. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. The time is 6 o'clock. Today's the 10th day of December 2024, and I call this board workshop of the United Independent School Board of Trustees to order. The following board members are present.
Danielle Martinez.
Elisa Oliveros.
I'm Javier Montemayor. We do not have a quorum, but let the record show that this workshop has been duly called and that notice of this workshop has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act. Agenda item number 2, Pledge of Allegiance. Will everyone please rise for the Texas Pledge and the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. Agenda item number 3, public comments.
Who was that?
I don't know if that was me or not.
I don't know who that was.
Do we have any
Oh,
public?
we do have 5 public comments. One of them I will have to be reading into the record due to a lawful ban of Patricia Mayers in accordance with Texas Education Code 37105. Let me set my timer for 3 minutes as the other speakers will get live. Here we go. To the members of the board, district leaders in the community, I am submitting this statement to be read on my behalf as I have been unjustly banned from district property without proper notification or due process. This ban directly violates my rights under section 26.001 of the Texas Education Code, which ensures public access to educational processes, as well as my constitutional right to due process. The recent arrest of 5 individuals for impersonating security officers on UISD campuses reveal a catastrophic failure of oversight and accountability within this district. This is not merely a procedural misstep, it is a violation of trust, safety, and the law. For over a decade, UISD has paid nearly $1 million to a third-party vendor, IView Security, to provide campus security. Yet, it has now been exposed that this vendor employed unlicensed individuals, a clear violation of Texas Occupations Code Section 1702.101, which mandates proper credentialing for security officers. This negligence further breaches Chapter 37 of the Texas Education Code, which requires districts to maintain safe environments for students and staff. Additionally, the Texas Penal Code, Section 37.10, prohibits tampering with or falsifying government records. Did UISD personnel ensure that IView's documentation was thoroughly vetted before awarding the contract? If not, who is accountable for this failure? The financial aspect is equally troubling. How does this district justify spending hundreds of thousands of dollars annually on a vendor without ensuring compliance with basic legal and safety requirements? Taxpayers, parents, and students deserve to know how this negligence occurred and what steps will be taken to prevent future lapses. I must ask, who will be held accountable at UISD for this alarming breach of security and trust? Which district leaders, board members, or administrators will take responsibility for this scandal? How will you ensure that all vendors and contractors are fully compliant with the law moving forward? Finally, I call attention to my own situation. I was banned from district property without proper notification, public explanation, or justification, an act that blatantly violated civil rights protections and the Texas Open Meetings Act, Section 551.023. If this district cannot follow its own policy in dealing with individuals, how can it expect the public to trust its leadership? This community deserves answers, transparency, and immediate action. The safety of our children and the integrity of our district demand nothing less. Concerned retired teacher Patricia Mayers. I did have 32 seconds left. Okay, our first public comment is from Victor Vasquez, discussion and presentation on district procedures for contracting service provider.
Good afternoon, Mr. Vasquez. You have 3 minutes.
How you doing, sir?
Good.
How you doing?
Good evening. My name is Victor Vasquez. I stand before you today not only as a concerned taxpayer, but someone who believes in accountability, transparency, and proper management of public funds. What I have been seeing from this board regarding the handling of this security contract is nothing short and negligence and a failure of leadership, including, Mrs. Morales, Ms. Flores, David Canales, and Mr. Salazar. Taxpayer pay for the leadership, no excuses, right? This district pay for this security company with public fund, our taxpayer dollars. Yet there has been no serious attempt to recover this fund despite clear evidence of negligence, and this performance simply canceling the contract is not enough, right? We can investigate and find out for how long, how many people we pay, and get the money back. Accountability starts here. As a board, you have the authority to responsibility to investigate and how long the company provide unqualified and unvetted security personnel to the district. You should demand a full audit of all payment made to this company and determine how much of those funds were wasted on their failures to comply with the contract. Right, Mr. Flores? Take legal action. The district must sue the company to recover taxpayer dollars. Anything less would send to a message to the vendors can take advantage of this district without consequences, right? We project in the district where everybody can make a company, get a contract with the district, and next, who's following the policy. As a board, it's your responsibility to provide oversight, enforce accountability, ensure this does not happen again. Police trust at stake. We, the taxpayer community members, demand more than symbolic gestures like canceling the contract, demand more real accountability. Violation, right? So your personnel, your leadership, violated some Texas Code Education, and so Texas Penal Code, right? So we know that the Texas Education would investigate, including with Attorney General, the Texas Education Code, and also, the Texas Penal Code. So I'm suggesting to you, give it another party to investigate, because I don't want to be here today, listen oh, high five, we did it good, you're great, your leadership, because it's not like that, okay? Thank you.
Next, we have Mrs. Letty Juarez regarding RFP 2024-003, Security Officer Service.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Letty Juarez. The RFP awarded iView Security clearly stated that the primary role of their security guards was to assist in providing a safe environment for all students and staff. However, despite this being described as an as-needed contract, let's be transparent. iView security guards were working in our schools throughout the entire year. UISD paid this company approximately $205,000 last academic year and over $58,000 for this year alone. These guards had direct contact with our students. The PowerPoint presentation on vendor and contractual services fails to adequately address the critical issue of why 5 security guards who, according to KGNS, were allegedly impersonating security officers were working on our campuses. The presentation outlines what procedures should have taken place, but does not confirm whether these protocols were actually followed. I am requesting that the district provide the community with an audited report that includes a comparison of the iView security guards' first date of assignment with the district and the dates of their criminal background checks, fingerprinting, and one-day training. An analysis of whether any guards were working before completing these mandatory steps. If so, this would indicate that the district was not in compliance with its own policies. Additionally, the superintendent needs to address who will be held accountable if the district is found to be out of compliance. It is important for the superintendent to demonstrate to the community that individuals will be held accountable if negligence or misconduct is identified and that appropriate actions will be taken. In October 2023, a Laredo Morning Times article titled Texas DPS Operation Targets Unlicensed Security Guards reported that 8 people were arrested in Laredo. Given this information, the UISD Chief of Police, who is responsible for overseeing security guards should have implemented checkpoints to detect falsified records. Upper management positions come with significant compensation and the expectation to be proactive, not reactive. The chief of police with his years of experience and knowledge of law enforcement trends should have foreseen these risks and implemented safeguards. Furthermore, the board recently approved $6,000 salary increase for him in August, further underscoring the expectation of accountability. I urge the district to present a comprehensive plan to the community that includes new interventions for detecting falsified licenses and ensuring all security guards meet compliance standards before they begin working on campuses. The safety of our students and staff is far too important for these oversights to continue. Thank you, sir.
Our final comment is from Ms. Edna Almeda regarding item 4B, safety and security protocols and procedures.
Good evening, Ms. Almeda.
Good evening. For the record, Edna Olmeda. And I'll start, good evening, everyone. I will start with a comment made by Ms. Alisa Flores Oliveros. In the last board meeting, you said you were tired of the negative comments. And to that I say, we are also tired. We, the community, are also tired of the bad image UISD has had in these past years. And this is the reason why we advocate. And this is advocating for our students, our parents, our community. Our students and community deserve better. The procedures and policies need to change, and people need to be held accountable. Just like teachers and staff are held accountable whenever something goes wrong at the campus level. Why the discrimination? And I don't blame you, Dr. Cruz, since you barely came on board, but I do expect you to do something about it, because if not, then this will fall on your hands. Priorities need to be outlined and addressed. And they need to be addressed on more important issues rather than petty bans. There is a need for checks and balances to prevent things such as the failure of the TIA, the embarrassing incident with the securities. Who was held responsible for the proper implementation of the TIA, which affected so many hardworking teachers? And who will be held accountable for the security incident? The district claims that it prides itself in accountability, so let's see it happen. And if people need to be demoted or terminated, so be it. Because if it was any Dick or Jane, any teacher or staff, we would have been terminated or given a written reprimand. Just like you didn't hesitate to ban Ms. Myers or Mr. Rincon for petty and unfounded reasons, let's do the same with everyone, because this is embarrassing. What this tarnished image UISD is currently facing is a disgrace. Our community and our students deserve better. Thank you.
We have no further comments.
Agenda item number 4A, discussion and presentation on district procedures for contracted service providers.
Yes, so this presentation will be conducted by our CFO, Ms. Laida Benavides, alongside Mr. David Canales, our Associate Superintendent for Human Resources. This is a response to the inquiries we've had regarding our district's procedures regarding contracting service providers. So we'll begin with Ms. Benavides.
Good evening, Mr. Montemayor, Ms. Oliveros, and Ms. Martinez, and members of the audience. We have a quick presentation tonight to discuss the district procedures for using contracted service providers. Just in a nutshell, right, contracted services are provided by a vendor or an independent contractor to the district that offers their services to the public. And so if the services are for an extended period of time, or they are going to surpass a certain threshold amount, these services are procured through some type of bidding process, not necessarily an RFP, but just depending on the type of procurement that's necessary for this type of service. And that's done through the purchasing department. And you all have seen that pretty much on a monthly basis, we bring you proposals to award, and that item is brought to you by the purchasing department. And just to keep in mind that there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes before that award is brought to you, right? There's an end user that tells us what they need. There's committees, there's evaluation criteria, there's references, there's all types of things that go into putting a contract together before it comes to the board to be awarded. If the services are for a short-term period, right, the district requires, and we use what they call a service provider packet. And if you think about our campuses who hire maybe a choreographer for their dance team or for judging UIL, and we do want to pay these individuals, right? We have a service packet in which the end user, which is either the campus or the department, fills out various types of forms, whether it's an I-9, whether it's, you know, just telling us the scope of work, you know, terms of the agreement. And so I'll just outline real quickly here what that end user usually has to tell us what they need, right? So the end user, which is usually a campus or department, or is a campus or department, they determine the specific services and scope of work required. They establish the duration of time the work is needed. They provide to us the required qualifications, certifications, etc. of the vendor and or its employees, and furnishes any additional requirements. The purchasing department gets these specifications that are based on the information provided by the end user, and then includes additional bid attributes that protect the district, right? Like the criminal history background, insurance requirements, warranty information, continuation of services, right to extend. So there's all types of other attributes that we end up, the purchasing department ends up including in some of these packets. So then the purchasing department will follow their procurement procedures to comply with laws and regulations, advertising, selecting evaluation criteria with the end user, facilitating review of bids, obtaining best and final offers by bidders if applicable, and obtaining end users' recommendation of awarded bid, and then coming to the Board of Trustees through an action item for your approval. And once awarded, once the board awards, and you'll see different individuals come to your meetings, we usually ask the department head, you need to be there just in case there's questions about your particular contract. And so at that point, you know, the end user knows that the board has okayed and can hear firsthand the issues with their contract. So then on the short term end, again, I talked about the provider packet. I mean, we have tons of forms, right? But we try to kind of make it streamlined, right? But there is a request for service provider form, which will document the need for the service, required credentials, date, time of service, place of service, terms, fees, etc. At one point, we even asked for number of employees that are going to hear that person present, or number of students that are going to benefit from that service. And so there's a lot of information on that request for service provider form. There's also insurance requirements, and if you think like, well, what type of insurance requirement would that choreographer need? Believe it or not, if they're driving onto our premises, we ask for a copy of their auto insurance. That's an example, right? At a smaller scale, contract at a smaller scale. Conflict of interest questionnaire, an IRS W-9 form, and a certification of criminal history record information form. So then for both the long-term and the short-term service contract, it is required to have a background check conducted on all employees of the vendor if it is determined that there will be close contact with the students. We actually have a form where the vendor is supposed to choose a yes or no question, and I think Mr. Canales will be able to show you that. But pretty much the question is, will you be having continuous services, which means it's not like this one-day thing. And then the second question is, will you be in direct contact with our students? And if that is a yes, then further processes are necessary. The purchasing department includes the certification of criminal history record information form in the bid specs, which is also part of the service provider packet. That's where I'm saying it's in both, right? Whether it's short-term or long-term. The end user will be responsible for ensuring these requirements are maintained by the vendor. If it is determined that there will be close contact with students for a specific time, the Human Resource Department requires additional steps to clear the vendor service provider. And at this time, I will be letting Mr. Canales explain the human resource aspect.
Good evening, David Canales for the record. Once we have purchasing has already cleared these individuals, so not clear, but just vetted the people. It's now our turn through the contract. There's three things that will happen. So back in 2019, the FBI did an audit of DPS and realized that there was too many hands in the cookie jar running background checks, fingerprinting, and so forth. They now assigned it to our schools to do the fingerprinting and so forth. So that happened later on. So now we became the police to police that action. So if you heard Mrs. Benavides, Ms. Benavides kind of mentioned that in all our contracts, there is a verification that the verification of criminal backgrounds have been taken care of by the vendor. But if it's the fingerprinting, we get involved as well. So let's go ahead and begin. So Texas Education Code, TEC 22.0834 and 22.08341 governs the fingerprinting and criminal history record information requirements for contractors, employees working with school districts and charter schools that have continuing duties related to services and opportunities for direct contact with students. So if I have an opportunity and I'm having continuous services with a student, and it could be students, doesn't have to be the same student, I have the opportunity to come over and over and over and over again, then definitely I will need to get fingerprinted. And the fingerprinting is because then what happens is they become rolled into UISD's account. So at that point, if that individual goes out and gets arrested for something, we'll get alerted. We'll get alerted to know. So they get the criminal background, which we also do, and then, of course, we do the fingerprinting. So let's talk about the three options that happen within this contracted services. The first one, option one, no continuous contact with students. The bid condition requirements are there. You have to attest that your folks have been cleared by your company or by your agency, whatever it may be, and they're not having any direct contact with our kids, not continuous. So think of a construction process. If you're building a school out in no man's land, there's no students around there. So we're definitely not going to have all the subcontractors and everybody that's working there get fingerprinted to be on our roll. That won't happen. Another way, I don't know if you remember when they were rebuilding Nixon, they had these wood barriers that protected the students from the construction workers. That would be an example. Another example, while the kids are there, they're still isolated from the general population. So option one, no fingerprinting at all. The background check is responsible by the agency, the vendor, whoever it may be. That's part of the agreement that they have within the contract. Option two, no continuous contact with students. So this is an example of the UIL judge, where I need to find a judge to do Lincoln Douglas debate, cross-examination debate. I need to find, usually we get lawyers, we get other teachers. What they do is the UIL coordinator then tells us, and if it's for one day, we at least do a criminal background check only. That's it. We don't do fingerprinting because they're just going to be there one time. They're going to see the kid once, and then they're not going to come back. Option three. Option three is continuous contact with students. So we do both, background and fingerprinting, because they're not going to come one time. They're going to come several times during the year, and it may be someone who comes for the duration of the contract, for 3 years, whatever it may be. So we have our guidelines. So there is that vendor packet that Ms. Benavides was sharing, and they all get it. And it all says the same thing. And in this contract, in this report, it talks about during the contract period, that's the highlighted in blue, you must notify human resources of additional hires or of people who leave the system once the contract is awarded. It is the vendor's responsibility to let us know when they're hired and when they're losing their folks, so that way we can take them off, because DPS has a guideline that says we have to take them off if they're no longer providing services for UISD. We cannot keep them on our rolls. Okay? So in here is all the instructions. So let me break it down. So step one, certification. So here is the packet. and it kind of goes over the guidelines. It talks about the Texas Education Code. On this other side is that affidavit that Ms. Benavides said, are you going to be providing services, long-time services? So the vendor or contractor has to fill out that information saying yes or no. If they say yes, then there's further steps. And then that's when we get involved at that point. Then we move on to the third page, the other page. So the first one over here, criminal history record information. We want to know, because an automatic disqualifier is if you provide misinformation, that will disqualify you from employment with us. So the first question is, basically, have you ever been arrested? Not that it's been dismissed, it's have you ever been arrested? Doesn't mean you'll automatically get disqualified, but it's important that you say yes if you did, because when we run the background check, it's going to pop up. It may be something simple, DWI, it may be something like theft, depending on what the role is, and it happened maybe when you were a teenager, a 17-year-old, an 18-year-old, and you're now 50, we'll consider all that down the road. Have you ever been convicted is the second one. Have you ever been charged and convicted and received deferral adjudication and so forth? That's the third one. So we get all this information before we run anything so we can compare what we find. The second item is through DPS. This is we call it the CCH form, computerized criminal history. This gives us permission to run those background checks. If we don't have that, then we can't do that. That's for DPS protection as well as the client's protection, because you don't want to have someone that's going to check on your daughter's boyfriend to see if he's a good guy or not. You have to have reasons. DPS does audits, and we have to make sure that we have a paper trail that there was legitimate reasons why we're doing background checks. Then the other one is where we put the list. So the vendor will put the list of the names of employees on that long sheet, and then they're required for each individual to produce those other two sheets that were next to that one. And then once we have all that information, and when we send the fingerprinting part, we send them a video. And that's the next slide you see here. So this is like an example here that our office will send the vendor. Mr. David Canales, as UISD vendor contractor, you're required to complete the finger process in order to be cleared. Again, to be cleared to provide services. Attaches a video showing the procedure for fingerprinting. So in there, it's a step-by-step of how to get fingerprinted with Identigo. And then what happens at that point, they send us a receipt that they did it, and then we get the results that comes from DPS. And once you become on our roster, then we share with purchasing, and purchasing then would share with the vendor or the contractor and say, this individual that you sent information for is clear, or this individual is not clear. And that's the process that we do for all our folks. So let's say within the duration of the contract, we cleared you, and then a year from now, they get arrested for something, then we'll notify purchasing, and they notify the vendor or contractor, and then they're told at that point, this person is no longer allowed to work with us because of the fingerprint.
Okay. So,
I have a question. Okay. So,
hold on. For the record now, we have Michelle Molina present, so I'll let the record show that a quorum of board members is present and that this workshop has been duly called and that notice of this workshop has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act.
I was listening to our live YouTube, so I'm fully versed on everything from the start of the meeting. Thank you. Go ahead.
okay, so question. I know it was said that HR, right, they clear, HR does the clearing, does the fingerprinting and backgrounds. So for example, right, because I know a lot of people are interested, I as a parent, I want to know too, in regards to the security, right? We do know that the vendor has the responsibility, correct, and vetting their employees. But you just mentioned this background review document, right? So how did it fall in the cracks with us? Do we know what happened? Obviously, if we have this, HR is supposed to be doing the clearance, right, and then going back to purchasing. I do know that they were sending employees, right, as a need basis. But my issue is, I mean, it's a big issue. It's a big oversight, right? Why didn't we have this in place with that specific contract?
Okay, are you referring to the IVU
The
contract?
IVU contract.
That's the elephant in the room.
All right.
Yes, yeah.
So what I can tell you is that particular vendor totally circumvented all the rules and guidelines that we had. We did not know about those individuals. They did not come through our office at all. We did not know their names. We didn't even know they were working. They did not share this information with us as the contract states. And so they totally circumvented us.
Okay, and so who's gonna be held accountable in that? I mean, I'm gonna request, I don't know if it's possible for me to request like an audit or something, because that's unacceptable. I mean, I saw it, where there was one individual who had a criminal record since the eighties. I did the search myself, since 1988. And he was working at one of the schools. I mean, God forbid, that, thank God nothing happened. He was taking flowers to girls, to students at LBJ. And so, I mean, I don't know if I can do that, Mr. Montemayor.
So what I can tell
Okay.
you is this, for the record for you all. We had about 5 or 6 that were in our rosters that followed the procedures. They were with us. So these other individuals, the owner did not inform us of new employees. As the contract states, you have to tell us. You have to tell us when you hire new people that go to our campus. You can hire people, but just don't send them to our campus. You can send them to other areas. So these individuals that you're referring to, we would not be able to run a background check or fingerprinting because we didn't even know they even existed in our schools by name.
Okay, so, yes, the IVU security situation is the elephant in the room. I think I just said that, and we can
To
blame,
the next one. Thank you.
we can blame a third-party contractor all day long. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter. I think I've said it already. The responsibility for the security of the district falls on the district. The kids, the staff belongs to the district. It cannot be taken away. It cannot be, given to somebody else. So I appreciate that. I appreciate your presentation, Mr. Canales, Ms. Benavides. I think everybody here has done a lot over the years to enforce our security, to upgrade our security. But this could have, some really bad results. And I'm not sure yet, and I'm waiting for the superintendent to give us a report. We have talked about, how we're going to resolve, the issues here, but, and the contract in all probability be canceled in my mind anyway. But we can't have that happen. We have to do a better job. Everybody, when we went out, the public said, hey, security, if we tell the kids, if you see something, say something. It's everybody's responsibility. From the chief, the police department, HR, who runs the background checks and the fingerprinting. We set the requirements from purchasing. Everybody, even the principals. I'm sorry to say, they're on their campuses. They see these people, and I don't want to add more stress to their lives, but they were on their campuses as well. And some of these requirements that you went over holds the principals, responsible for some of these items. So, we can't go back to the parents and say it's a third party. It's their fault. And I'm disappointed with the IVU as well. I know the owner personally. He was a friend of mine. He's a friend of mine. But this is unacceptable, and it's unacceptable in the district. We have to face the public. We have to tell the public, we're going to do a better job. We're going to find out what went wrong, and we're going to fix it. And that's pretty much, I think, all we really, really need to talk about. And I don't mean to. I mean, you're up here, and I don't mean come down on you,
I understand.
but it's just, that's what the public is.
I do want to share something with you, though. I mean, unfortunately, this is one contract that it didn't go right according to what we're learning, right? But I will tell you that if anything we've heard is that we're too strict. I'm going to give you an example. Recently, so you can hear me out, we had a presenter that goes all nationwide. And this individual was so surprised how much paperwork and how many hoops he had to jump, criminal background checks, all of that. So there are the safeguards are there. Obviously, this one fell through because there was that honesty, the trust, the obligation did not come through. But I will tell you that our sponsors, special ed, we usually have a lot of contracts with them, fine arts, all those consultants and so forth, we check them and we definitely, they know. And when we get information, we let them know, the end user, that they're no longer able to provide those services if they do come about.
Mr. Canales, I've been on the board now for 14 years, and I tried to be a parent volunteer, and I had to go through all the fingerprinting and all that. I still get checked at Alexander, I still get checked at Clark Middle School, I still get checked at the elementary school, and I'm okay with it. I'd rather err on the side of caution,
Yes.
you know, and I appreciate that. But this particular situation, you know, goes hand in hand with Mr. Garza's next presentation, goes hand in hand with what you're presenting. But it's just, there is no excuse. There really is no excuse in my mind, and I'm just one board member, but I cannot blame the third-party contractor. You know, yeah, there's issues. I don't know how far back it goes. I don't know if these employees have been the same employees that they reported when at the onset of the contract. I don't know yet, and I'm waiting to find out. But regardless of that, the district is responsible 100% every day, 24/7, for the safety and security of our students and our staff. And that's my rule. That's my golden rule, and it's not going to be diverted anywhere else. So.
Mr. Montemayor, I echo those sentiments. Yes, you know, we did find that the vendor did circumvent certain procedures that we have in place. In my analysis of the situation, in summary, there are gaps in the system, things that purchasing has put in place, but perhaps not followed to the fullest extent. Gaps in communication in terms of the awarding of the RFP and the next steps that need to happen. So my analysis of the situation does call for intervention, and that's what we're doing, putting steps into place. So when RFPs are awarded and contractors are awarded, the purchasing department now has the obligation to have an exit meeting with the end user to be sure that the responsibilities are placed on the end user, to be sure if there's any changes in the contracted services, if the people that are going to be sent over to provide services to us or to students are carefully looked at. To be sure that they follow all the background checks that need to be in place. So certainly it goes to both sides. It is the vendor did circumvent some of our procedures, and the procedures here at the district level must be tightened up to be sure that incident like this doesn't happen again.
What are you recommending, or what as a district, how are you proceeding to investigate how far back this went? You know, were there other security guards at this company?
We'll go far back as we need to. You know, it is going to take us a while reviewing the time cards, looking at those individuals to see if, in fact, those individuals were, in fact, licensed. The first responsibility of that vendor was to submit an attestation saying that every single security guard that was going to be out of campus was certified. That information solely falls on the vendor. Responsibility of us as a school district is to ensure that there's a criminal background check in place. Some of that did happen with those individuals that were presented to us at the beginning of the contract, but as security guards were substituted or called or put into rotation, these were just individuals who were just showing up at our campuses without anyone knowing or the purchasing department being notified, or police department not notifying, communicating. From the police department to the vendor, and of course our human resources department.
It's hard to fathom that all the good work that United has done in all the money that has been spent, the millions of dollars in safety and security upgrades, police force, security force, training, can be really ruined in moments by allowing people who are not certified or people we don't even know. I think you indicated, Mr. Canales, we didn't even know they were there.
So one of the things that we discussed, and I'll give credit to Sam, is that what we're probably going to do from this point forward is if you get cleared by us, we're going to give you an ID card. That way, when you show up, if you don't have an ID card, then we don't know who you are. If you have an ID card, it's because you were vetted and cleared by HR.
Like safety
And
and
so-
security department has that ID card as well already.
Say it again, sir?
No.
Yes. And that's what I was gonna say, like.
I'm referring one of these, one of these.
Yeah.
So what we'll do is we probably change the color, we'll put contractor, so forth, and that will be the safety check that the campus principals can look for. If it's long-time continuous services, right, has to be continuous, then they would get one of these cards, it would be by year, and that way, every year, they would have to get a new card. And that way, we know that they've been cleared.
Yeah.
That was just an idea. I'm not saying, we're not there yet. Dr.
Right.
Cruz is still completing the survey, the investigation, the processes, and then that might be one of the recommendations.
Yeah,
may
that
come
was
up
the first thing that came to my mind, because I'm thinking of my own centers at my job. And whenever we have a new employee, even an employee who already works with our program, move from one center to another, they have to take all their checks with them. They have to present their background checks, they have to present their ID badge to the center director before they're even allowed to be near students. So I was thinking the same thing. If these were new employees, who did they report to at the campus? Did they just go in and do their job? Or did they have to check in with someone before they started working for the day?
Typically, they would probably check in with either the police officer, the sergeant, the lead security, and they'll know that I'm the IVU, and they usually go either at the gate, or then sometimes they go at the front of the vestibule there, and they try to do like those little small jobs where the other guards that know the kids can maybe prevent fights or whatever, they're there. And these other ones are just there to do the check-ins and check-outs.
And then I was saying, Mr. Montemayor says he gets checked every time he goes into a school. I think all of us
We all
do,
do,
right?
right.
But would we think to check in a police officer? Would we think to check in a security guard, right? I don't think anyone should be exempt from that, right? Because I had to go through security right now to get in here, but do security have to go through security? Do police officers have to go through security? Obviously, they
Not
carry a
ours.
weapon, right?
Yeah, not ours.
But I think that's what happened here is because generally you tend to trust a person who has a uniform on with a badge, right? I trust them, right? It's just my nature. And I think that's probably how they slip through the cracks because you just assume that they're honest people, right? Because they carry a uniform and that represents something. It represents safety. And that was the very thing that was not happening, apparently, right? And then I agree, principals, if what you were saying, Ms. Martinez, is true, that there was a security guard giving flowers to students, well, how does she know that? Obviously, people were aware of it and nobody came forth with that information. So that's
Obviously, there's a
scary.
gap.
I know, I'm sorry. Okay, so, correct. All of this looks so pretty, right? But it's paper. So actions speak louder than words. You can never assume, and when it comes to security and safety, you can never trust. Never. You can never trust enough. Never. Never. And so being strict, yes, awesome. But again, look at what happened, right? There's a movie, Ben Affleck, The Town. I don't know if you all have seen it, right? They get away with stealing money dressed up as cops, right? And like Miss Alisa was saying, we need to now, and it's very unfortunate that instead of being reactive, this is more of a proactive. And again, you're there, you're kind of like on the chopping block, right, Mr.
Well, I'm fine because
Canales?
I know
But
the procedures that we did are
but
good.
but
So-
it is upsetting because there was a lack of communication from somebody, and parents are upset, and the public is upset, and so this needs to be fixed. And again, thank you for the presentation, but it all looks very pretty and what should have and what not, but we need actions. That's what we need. So
There
I
will
can-
be.
Excuse me, I think I need to jump in. I haven't been overseeing the purchasing department for long. I've recently become an assistant superintendent for business and finance. Purchasing now reports to the business and finance office. It's probably been about a year and a half, maybe 2 years. And I agree with all the board members here. And having a finance mind, trust is not an internal control. And doing this for 30 years, the first thing we tell a new staff member that comes into the business and finance area, handles fundraising, is if you're trusting somebody, you're already at fault.
Yep.
Okay, so I like that now that purchasing is here. The exit conference is the first thing when I met with purchasing staff, getting familiar with this. We do exit conferences when we fundraise with the principals, when we audit the schools, every month when we reconcile the bank accounts. I think the mindset will change now for an internal control environment. So we as a team, we came up with the exit conference. We try our best not to leave any loose ends anymore. Unfortunately, like you are correct, this is reactive, but we will be taking more proactive approaches with an internal control mind now. It was, thank you very much for the credit for the badge, because you see, when you have that mind to protect money, it's easy to convert that mind to say, we got to protect kids, right? We got to protect our facilities. So right away, we said the exit conference, let everybody know what their continuing responsibilities are. And then we need to secure that a campus principal, going back to what Ms. Olivero said, a campus principal, I have to disagree with you a little bit, Mr. Montemayor. The campus principal sees a uniform that's been approved by the board. And I felt that if we had a badge on them, they saw, hey, wait a minute, Mr. Montemayor, you came in without a badge. We're going to call central office immediately. So we have an internal control mentality now that is going to trickle down to the purchasing department, and try to prevent these things. I've been meeting with staff every day. Every contract we're going to review, every service we're going to review, anybody that's coming into our campuses, we're going to have that internal control approach to it. There's one thing that I've learned, because I have been through misfortune here over my career with UISD, with people taking money. And I'm fortunate enough to have a brother, an older brother who takes care of me, that rose as the highest ranking warrant officer for the U.S. Army. He was military intelligence, criminal investigations, and he did some special services ops. And he's always told me, you can invest $20 million in any computer system you want, but boots on the ground are the only way you're going to prevent human error. So that mentality I will bring into the entire division. And now that purchasing is in there, we will make sure that we have boots on the ground. We will rely on the computer technologies. I'm not putting it down, Mr. Perez, when we do know that something is happening, because that's how you extract the data and you control it at that point. But when somebody colludes or when somebody is out to cheat, if you don't have the boots on the ground, you are never going to catch them until after they do it. And I bank on my brother's 25 years experience in military intelligence, criminal investigations, and some of the special units that he participated in when he was deployed. If somebody wants to beat the system, unfortunately, I know it's sentimental, I know it's emotional, I know it's important because there's kids involved. But when you have a cheater, they're going to beat you. They're going to cheat you. So we've got to build the internal controls better. We have a new team now together put in the Division of Finance. We embrace the purchasing department. We need to go contract by contract and make sure that we are as pretty as what it looks like on
Yep.
paper.
Exactly.
What I will tell you is that we're all committed to make sure that this won't happen again. We're all committed to put those safeguards, and we work very closely with Sam and his departments and Lila and his department and her departments. We are going to be really committed to make sure that this won't happen again. Unfortunately, it came to this, but it is what it is. As Sam said, there was a cheater involved. I understand what you said. I mean, we're not going to blame all the third-party company, but we'll take this opportunity and we'll make sure that it doesn't happen again.
But we will not be using contracted security officers anymore,
No.
correct?
No, we will not. We're going to be replacing those 8 individuals with in-house UISD security guards. As a matter of fact, interviews have started today.
It's going to be like one of those for the Republicans in the room, trust but verify. That's what it is.
Mr. Canales, thank you. I'm
Yes.
sorry you're here taking all the fire, but the reality is that It is a very heavy topic.
Yes.
A lot of our constituents or parents are rattled, to say the least. You know, just to see that something, safety security can have some kind of, can be infiltrated. You know, and especially with what we treasure the most, which is honor logo for children. And I'm not blaming you, and I appreciate Dr. Cruz, you immediately taking action and starting the investigation and standing here today and taking accountability that we have some areas of concern, we have areas of improvement is a big deal to me. Accountability is a big deal to me. And I know that as hard as we all work as administration, we're gonna make this right. I do not blame our principals or assistant principals. I do not blame our campuses. The trust was there. How do you not trust? And that's hard. But we're learning from this, and we're going to make this better, and I know we are. Because everyone in here works extremely hard and for the purpose of what's on that logo for our children. So I appreciate everyone that's here, everyone that's going to continuing to work through this investigation together and put in the safety nets necessary so this doesn't happen again. And better vetting our vendors. It's important. We can't have any more possible loopholes. We can't put our children's life at risk whatsoever. I appreciate you giving this presentation.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Sir.
Thank you.
Thank
So,
you.
I'm going to skip over to agenda item, I know we have some teachers here. Agenda 4D, 2025-2026 budget calendar before I go into the other presentations. Is that the one?
No, it's the calendar,
Yeah.
the academic calendar.
I'm sorry,
Oh, the
Yeah.
academic one? Yes, sir.
I am on the, okay.
Five.
Agenda item number 5I, adoption of 2025-2026 academic calendar. And only because I see some teachers sitting here and probably had a long day. It's Alegría.
Yes, good evening, Ms. Martinez, Ms. Oliveros, Mr. Montemayor, and Ms. Molina. Rebecca Morales, Associate Superintendent for District Administration and Student Services, for the record. Yes, I want to recognize, and I appreciate you acknowledging that they're here, and we want to get them home because they have had a very long day with our students. So if I could have our calendar committee, they worked very hard for months putting our options together for campuses and departments to vote. Can all of our members of our calendar committee please stand to be recognized by our administration and our administration and our committee? Let me tell you, they had such amazing ideas. We had representation, and they're not all here. It was a very big group. We had representation from across the district. They had some incredible feedback to give, and of course, we always want to give our campuses the preference and the feedback to give our suggestions, because at the end of the day, they're our end users, them, because they work with our students directly, our campuses. So we had teachers, we had administrators, the majority teachers, yes? The majority of our calendar committee are teachers, so we're here to present to you the recommendation for the adoption of the calendar for possible adoption next week at the regular board meeting. So we are presenting to you the option that was most favorable. Everybody had a couple of weeks, every campus and every department had a couple of weeks to review these calendar options with their staff and present and vote on one calendar, and this is the calendar that was selected. So some of the highlights from this calendar, I want to point out again an idea from our teachers who are working extremely hard every single day with our students. We know that they do not have enough time. Those of us that have been teachers, those of us that have been campus administrators, know that there's never enough time for planning and preparation for our students, for interventions, for activities, project-based learning, all of these things that we want our teachers to be doing, and there's never enough time. We have ARDs that we have to keep, take into account. We have PLCs, regular, meetings, and all these other things. So you're going to see two items on the calendar, one in September, one in May. You're going to see it in blue with a red outline, and this is something new that we've never done before, and we are calling these our PLC days, where our students will not have class, and the teachers will not be pulled out to trainings, district or campus, and they will have an opportunity to meet as departments, as grade levels, and just plan.
and work, get caught up, look at the first one is going to be right after the first 6 weeks, so they'll have an opportunity to regroup and reflect on the first 6 weeks with our students for the beginning of the school year and see how we have to regroup our students or any interventions that we have to do for them. And then again in May, when we're getting close to the end of the school year, to reflect on, you know, assessments, what students we have to recommend for summer school, and what interventions we have to do before the closeout of the school year. So we're very proud of that. Can we congratulate all of our teachers and our calendar committee, because again, they really did provide very valuable feedback. And then of course, you're just going to see your regular, you know, start date for students will be on the 13th. We have 1 day off, at least minimum every month, which is another thing that they had requested. And then we would be ending the school year on the 28th of May. And graduations would be on the 28th and the 29th. And so this is the calendar that we are proposing to you, option 1, for consideration at next week's board meeting.
Yes. Okay, so those 2 days, where did you pull them from?
So we're very fortunate. We also worked with Lida, who oversees admissions, and Ms. Martinez. I'm not sure if she's here. Yes, she is. And so we needed to make sure that we are always very proactive with the minutes that we have already built into our calendar. So you know, all of these times that we've brought to you when we've had to cancel school for bad weather or come in late and so on, we've never had to use our bad weather days because we have excess minutes built in already to our calendar. So even with those 2 days, we're still good. Instead of 175 instructional days, we're going to have 73 instructional days, and there's still plenty of days and minutes in excess in case we have any cancellations, any water issues, or anything like that.
Okay, is this also?
Any highlights?
I think those are the biggest highlights that because it's very new and it's something that we've really never done. The other thing that we wanted to point out in February, we know that WBCA is always something that we're competing with. This year in our calendar, because we had already adopted it, our days off are not coinciding with the WBCA events. However, for next year's calendar, since we already had their dates in advance, we've already worked them into their schedule. Unfortunately, it's not President's Day weekend, which is something that we really prefer to do for our community and our parents. But we went ahead and went with the WBCA since we know that that is a very big event in our community. So that's another change that you're going to see in February. Is it's not President's Day weekend, but it is the dates that we were given by the WBCA committee that already have their dates in advance.
Bounces with LISD as well.
We did share, and as a matter of fact, they had different dates. We worked on ours first, so they did ask us for a copy of ours. And when they were working on their calendar, they did make some changes to their spring break. For example, they had initially were going to do it a week later, but they moved it up to the same week as ours. I know the LISD typically does release a little bit earlier in the school year, though, and that I think is going to remain. I don't think they have the days off, and we did talk about that, but the teachers prefer to have the days off throughout the year and the last week of May.
Do you have graduation days already?
The graduation days are the 28th and the 29th. And if y'all remember, we moved them this year to 2 days. We're going to have 2 and 2, and they're going to be during
that's what I was going to ask.
Yes,
Okay.
and they're going to be during the day. We already have the dates reserved. Ms. Rodriguez already called the arena. Yes, and so
It's a lot for one day.
2 and 2. Yes, we're going to do 2 and 2 starting this year.
Okay, good deal.
2 and 2 starting this year. Yes, and we're planning the same for next year.
Thank you to all the teachers who participated in this.
Thank
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you.
I'm going to come back to agenda item 4B, safety and security protocols and procedures.
Yes, this item will be presented by Associate Superintendent for Administration and Operation Services, Mr. Mike Garza, as well as followed by Ruben Ayala, our Safety Crisis Response Administrator. Chief Salazar will also be discussing the police and security initiatives taking place. This is in response to some of the inquiries regarding our security measures that we have in our campuses and our district facilities. You're going to see that the security measures that are in place here at UISD are top-notch. As a matter of fact, we recently received a report through the Texas Education Agency through their district vulnerability assessment that many of our practices that we have in place are going to be exemplars and suggested across the state of Texas. So, Mr. Garza.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Dr. Cruz, Mr. Montemayor, Ms. Oliveros, Ms. Martinez, and again, Ms. Molina, who stepped out. We appreciate this opportunity to be able to share. Probably a little bit less than a year ago, we had presented some information to you all. This is a little bit more robust. We do have 2 new board members, so we want to kind of get everybody up to speed with with all the information. So this is the department itself, the Safety and Crisis Response Unit. Now, obviously, there are other factors to safety. It's a district-wide issue, but these are the individuals that are part of this particular department, including myself. We have Mr. Ayala, who's our administrator. We do have a vacancy currently that we're going to be hiring a behavioral threat specialist, which will be a licensed professional counselor that will be on our staff, that will be proactively seeking individual students that have issues, behavioral issues. And so we're going to try to get ahead of being proactive in trying to identify any potential hazards in the future. As you know, a lot of the stuff that we've had to do has been reactive, especially with our students. We do have a really good staff of 4 LPCs that work under Ms. Ramirez, the Director of Counseling. Again, they're reacting to a lot of the issues that are going on. What we're going to be able to do is track a lot of the items that come into play, whether it's discipline or any type of arrest that involve assaults or any type of violence. We're going to be ahead of that and proactive to be able to identify some of these students.
Mr. Garza,
Yes,
is
ma'am.
that going to be an additional position, LPC, or is it going to be from the existing LPCs that we have?
It'll be an additional, therefore, this will be a fit.
This will be from outside.
That is correct, yes, ma'am. And then we are looking for grants to be able to expand both in their areas and in our area to be able, because even with 5, it'll be completely, it's not enough. We need more people. And then, of course, we have Ms. Cavazos, who's our safety officer, and Oscar Guerrero, who's our safety technician. So just to kind of give you a little perspective, there are some state required mandates that we have to abide by. One of them is we are required to have a safety and security committee. These are a group of individuals from our community that have been recommended to serve. At one point, that committee was about 60 or 70 individuals. As you know, people are busy, they have issues, and so as that has transpired over the last couple of years, we do take attendance. And so those individuals that are unable to attend, especially in consecutive meetings, we have asked for them to no longer be on the committee and kind of reduce that a little bit. We want people that are active and very proactive in being able to be a part of this.
Who do you have on the committee, Mike? Just out of
I'm sorry, sir?
Are they district employees? Are they?
So we have some partial district employees, some principals, some regular staff members. It's outside community members, business people, outside law enforcement. So this is something that we want input from all these different areas. And more importantly, it's an oversight. It's a group that oversees. We are required to meet 3 times a year by rule. And so we come to them with different issues. We give them our emergency operations plan, all the things that are required by state statute. In addition, if there's any findings in any of the audits that occur, we are required by rule to present to them as well, to let them know. And of course, give us recommendations, right? So it's a really good symbiotic relationship with those individuals in our department as well. They oversee the development and implementation of the district emergency plan. And again, as I mentioned, we are required by rule to submit any audit findings to them. And then, of course, we also present to the board, as you know, in executive session. So these things that are discovered or found are not subject to open records. So we do present to them, and we do present to you all in closed session. Every individual that's on this committee is sworn by the same rules as the board, as far as open meetings and making sure that they do not disclose confidentiality. That is correct. Just in the prevention phase, and this is going to be the slide where I'll stop, and then I'll pass it on to Ruben. But I just wanted to kind of put everything in perspective for everybody. You know, UISD has 85 commissioned police officers. That includes 3 canine handlers. That number also includes 12 vacancies that we're trying to get on board. This law enforcement is an issue in our county. It's not just UISD. Everybody's having trouble hiring law enforcement officers. There's not enough people going into the academy. We're not getting enough, especially at the rate of pay that we have. The federal government is more competitive. There are other options available to people that go to law enforcement options. But I will say that we are the 3rd largest police force in the county. If you really put that in perspective, that's an amazing thing. Laredo Police Department obviously has over 500 officers. Webb County has a couple hundred officers, or certainly over 100. Well, our commissioned officers is the 3rd largest police force in our county. And we have been doing that, and we have been committed to that way before it was a state requirement. We've been doing this over 10 to 15 years, And it's been a commitment that this board and past boards have committed to. And there was no funding tied to that. At least right now, we're at least getting some funding to be able to offset some of that cost. And even then, it's only a $15,000 per campus cost. Obviously, our cost for this commitment is large. And so that 15,000 only does a partial responsibility of what's required.
And are there any, I'm sorry to interrupt you, are there any like grants that you can apply for law enforcement? Or do you all, I know like the police academy, right, they sponsor students and then they enroll, do you all do that or no?
Yes, so we're very active, especially with our security guards. Those that have interest in some kind of law enforcement capacity, we encourage them to go to the academy. We sponsor them for that. We're even willing to have some differential pay for them if they go, with a commitment that they stick with us. Because again, here we are making the investment. They get their certification, and then they go off to customs or border patrol, right? So we want to make sure that we get a commitment, kind of like our growing our teachers. We've talked about our bus drivers. If we fund their tuition, then they come back and work for us for X amount of years. So yes, ma'am. Now grants typically, my familiarity with the city of Laredo, with the COPS grant, does require matching funds. Obviously, that does help us. However, we may not necessarily qualify that because that's more for municipalities and so forth. However, what that does is that there's a gradual process where the grant phases out. So over a period of time, you have to take up that particular responsibility of the funding for these individuals. Most of the grants that we do receive, and we're very successful, usually I would say 98% of the time that we submit a grant through our police department, it's usually for equipment. It's either patrol units, weapons, shields, any other type of auxiliary items, and so we're pretty successful when we apply for those. So really good at that. So we do have 147 security guards. This includes the 11 vacancies, Dr. Cruz. That was an area, believe it or not, we were having a lot of trouble in hiring, and a lot of our custodial, food service, bus drivers, security guards was one of those areas where we were right there. We really almost had a full staff. Obviously, the 8 that we included as part of that 11, so we technically only had 3 vacancies prior to this situation. So we're really good. We're really good at being able to hire those individuals. Unfortunately, we end up hiring them from the areas that we're desperately needing people. Our custodial staff, our food service, and our bus drivers have decided to move on to that particular area. One of the things that we're very, very proud of is our relationship with our law enforcement, our outside law enforcement. We have a very good relationship with the Laredo Police Department. We're always in constant communication with the Chief of Police and all his command staff. The Sheriff's Department, as you can see here, we've had several activities where we bring in law enforcement. One of the biggest issues that we want to make sure, and it was part of our evaluation from TA, was making sure that we continue that relationship with outside law enforcement, because the individuals that come and support us, and I will tell you that it's robust. We're very blessed in this community to have such a rapid response to any need that we have. They don't know our facilities. So we have to get them to know where our classrooms are, what our processes are, all the procedures. So we've done a really good job of rotating our campuses and bringing people in to be able to get that done. I will share with you, and I think that it was stated here with our board members, Mr. Montemayor, safety is everybody's responsibility. I mean, we have 4 individuals that are in the safety crisis unit, but really it's 6,500 employees that are responsible for safety, superintendent all the way down to our custodial staff. We recently, last year, we had a really, really good outcome in our audits. You know, technically, I'm not allowed to share what our results were and so forth, but it was outstanding. I can tell you that. And when we tried to publicize that publicly, I actually got called out. They literally called me from TA and says, "You cannot be doing that." So you know, I know there's a desire for us to be out there to tell publicly what we're doing and the great things that we're doing, but in a lot of cases, we're restricted from doing that. And a lot of the information that we're presenting to you, we have some restrictions to be able to provide publicly, because we don't want people that are bad actors to know what our procedures are, and then we're giving them the tell on how to hurt us, right? Where our defense is. So it is our responsibility. We take it seriously. We have had conversations with all our employees, whatever level of employee they are. Recently, we had a meeting with our facilities department, and we have empowered every single employee to question anybody that comes into our building. So if you see something or notice somebody that doesn't belong there, you have the power to question that individual. The superintendent, in his first week, they didn't allow him to get in the building until they checked his ID. I mean, that's the way we do it. You all have experienced going into a building, the checks and the balances that we have to make sure that everybody is vetted. We have empowered all our employees to question anybody that comes onto our campus. And if they get in trouble, I tell them, I will take responsibility for that. You don't have to worry about it. I'll deal with the department director. We'll do it. Because I'd rather you do that than the alternative, right? And not do anything about it. So we take a lot of pride in that. And as Mr. Canales mentioned, even outside individuals that come into our community, the keynote speaker for crying out loud for our Parent Learning Summit had to go through the vetting process and was saying, hey, this is a lot more than what other school districts do. And oh, by the way, in our audit, that was a common theme from the auditors, was that we do a lot of things that other districts don't do, right? And so a lot of the things that they provided comments to us were recommendations. Essentially, they're not required, they're not state mandated. They just think that it'd be a good thing. But we are way in advance of any other school district. Where they're trying to catch up where we've been for the last decade, we've been able to use our funding to do more progressive things. And so we're super excited about that. And again, Ruben will be able to share a little bit more detail. There are a lot of slides, but I promise you it'll be quick.
I have a question, really quick question. So these security guards that we had, because I know it was a question from one of the parents that I had, were they required to sign in? Were they
So-
supposed to be signing in?
So there's a timesheet that from what I understand, there was a timesheet.
Yes, every private security officer will report to the front, fill out the timesheet, and a sergeant will sign off on that timesheet for that day, for that particular day. For every single private security officer, they will sign in.
Okay, for like the IV ones, they had to
Correct.
sign in.
Yes.
Okay, okay.
So, I mean, at least there was some level of supervision for these individuals, you know.
Well, yeah, but one of them was a criminal.
Sure,
I
sure.
mean,
Yes, ma'am.
you know.
Okay, and then we'll pass it on to Ruben.
So I just wanted to go ahead and add a little bit to this regarding to these walkthroughs. These walkthroughs are designed or required that we give outside law enforcement the opportunity to walk through our campuses. So we've taken this to another level. What we'll actually do is we'll conduct a lockdown drill with them there. I present to them on our safety protocols, our procedures that we have at the district to share with them, and what policies and procedures they'd be walking into in the event that there was a lockdown. Then we actually call the lockdown, and they'll go through the hallways, check doors, and see all our procedures, actually enter classroom doors and speak to students. So these are outside agencies, so they're able to see all of that. I'll try to go through this as quickly as possible. So in our still continue with prevention, improvements that we've made to our campus facilities is security vestibules, the impact-resistant glass, additional security cameras, crisis alert panic buttons, which was a large investment. Card reader access locks, those are access to our exterior doors. New ISD communications and radios, so actually towers that have been installed by the city in our areas so that it will help our radio communications in our campuses. Classroom phones, we have just upgraded those. Perimeter fencing at all campuses. Cell phone boosters, we're in our phases working on that to improve that at all our campuses. Public announcement systems, so we've had to make some upgrades or some modifications to some of our public announcement systems. And procedures, so we're having a single point of entry, as well as identification badges. So these are for students and staff. Students in 6 through 12 are given an ID, and additionally on those ID badges, we are required to have the suicide and crisis lifeline as part of their badges. All district employees are also given a badge, and they're required to wear it every day at work. Visitors are screened through our visitor management, and they are given a disposable badge.
All of this is funded through our safety monies that we receive.
Are sixth graders?
6 through
12
12.
given badges?
Yes.
Their IDs.
Go ask them.
We just
You don't see them wearing their badges.
not wear. They're required. They're given a badge, so they're not required to wear it though.
They're
Right,
not-
currently, right now,
Not
they're not.
attached to their backpack.
It's
They have to have it
up
upon
for
request. They have to have their ID with them.
Yeah. Just started that, I think last year was when we purchased the machines. As well as our clear backpacks. So we have all secondary students in K through 12 we're given a clear backpack. As well as for all our stadium events, we have the limited bag policy. Metal detectors.
I'm sorry. I had somebody ask me about clear backpacks for athletics. Are you all thinking of doing that or no?
So the options that we've looked at are mesh bags, but it still gives us, so right now the way the policy is for those high school coaches, or actually for those athletic coaches, they're required to check those students' backpacks. So they are being checked.
In the beginning of the day when they come in.
And the beginning of the day, yes.
So when they come into the campus, they do the regular check, and then the athletic bags get put on a table, and they get searched, and then they move on. At the beginning of the day when they come in.
Yes, and as long as they're also going through our weapons detectors, that will also determine whether there's anything in that bag that really needs to be searched.
The other thing that's important is that there's a certain size that diminishes the strength of the bag. So the bigger the bag that's clear, it's going to be less reliable.
Right, and it's not just for athletics. I know we also do that for
Cheer and
band. We
dance.
do
Yeah,
that
band.
for even
Instruments
the
as
medical
well.
program that they have all the sensitive instruments and everything. So everything gets checked at the door.
Yes, and so these are the metal detectors or weapon detectors. Like you saw as you entered the building, these are now we have them at every high school, every middle school, and we just purchased for our elementary schools. So those will be deployed shortly. Locked doors. So we are audited regularly through our IDA or DVA. So that's Region 1, Texas School Safety Center, and TEA. All can do these checks, and they do these checks. So the intruder detection audits are happening on a regular basis. They will check all our campuses throughout the entire year. The DVA, we just had that done October 21st through 25th. And so that's one of the things that they check. They'll check all of our exterior doors to make sure that they close and lock, and they close and lock properly. And as well as we have added as an extra layer that it's not required for our interior doors to be closed and locked during instructional time. And so in doing that, that puts us at, in audits, that's something that they will check as well. Since we've made that a policy, they will follow up and check that
And
as
that
well.
continues to be checked throughout the day with security officers, police officers, administration throughout the day.
Yes, and we are required to do a weekly audit, weekly log sweep of all our exterior doors and our interior doors as well. That is logged, that is checked, and that is also put into our Sentinel platform, which I'll talk about a little bit.
So that is a policy that we implemented. And
Yeah.
because we implemented, now we're held accountable.
It's
for
not
it.
a statewide.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right.
And when we get audited, we're still required to, because it's one of our policies.
That's correct.
Yes,
So
and we've been
that-
able to pass successfully, right?
Absolutely. And so far, all the audits that we've had have been very successful.
Right.
So we've been very fortunate. The other thing too is, if you recall, we actually came to the board to let you know we're gonna implement this policy.
Yes.
Because now we're putting ourselves at a higher standard.
Yes.
Studies have shown,
This was last year, right?
yes ma'am.
Yes.
So at the beginning of last school year, we had it, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So studies have shown that if you have a locked door, the chances of fatalities almost go to zero. So that's why we implemented that, just to give us another peace of mind, to be able to make sure that, God forbid, something were to happen, penetrate our defenses from the outside, they at least have a locked door that gives them a percentage chance to survive.
And we have
That's-
multiple layers of
Absolutely.
security and safety before the
Absolutely.
lockdown, yes.
And I will share with you that we did get a lot of, a lot of pushback from staff and teachers and so forth. But when we had the Alexander incident, it really opened everybody's eyes that,
Right.
okay, now we know why we implement these policies.
And like
So-
anything, you'll get some pushback, but it's a culture change.
Absolutely. And they embraced it.
And
As soon as that
right,
happened in
right.
Alexander,
Everyone
they
will fall in
embraced the
line,
policy.
correct.
I have another question. I was reading over the weekend on that, the Texas School Safety Center. So with all of this, the iView incident that happened, right? I know you said that the district is a leader, right? They do a lot of things and other districts copy, which is excellent. But is this gonna be reported to the Texas School Safety Center as an incident that happened? Does it have to be reported or?
No, this is not part of any of the audits
No?
or anything that they oversee.
Okay. Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
So one of the other requirements is to have a reporting system for any threats. So we do have a report a threat anonymous reporting system. So anybody can go onto our district website and submit a Google form that will report any threats within the district anonymously. We also have started, or we're working with different law enforcement agencies on what's called the BTAM, or it's a Behavior Threat Assessment and Management Team. This is a citywide program. It's not a district, but we are part of it. We're there through the inception and through the initial training. And so what this does is ensures that any information regarding threats is shared with the district as well as other law enforcement agencies. And these could be threats to the school or to the community, but we are part of that conversation. And also the theory behind it is there's a path of violence for any of these people, and what we're trying to do is remove them from that path of violence and see what interventions we can do as a committee, as a group, anything that we can offer from the district as well, so that we can take these individuals off that path of violence.
And this is additionally to the safety committee that we have.
Yes, this is totally separate and apart. Yes,
Right?
this is
And
brand new.
We work hand in hand with all agencies, local, state, and federal. So, you know, first line of defense, we've spoken about this, Mr. Garza, is that anything that happens, we are notified almost immediately within that same minute, if not seconds, and we go into secure mode. Education is not compromised. It's not even, you know, hiccuped at the schools and within our campuses, within our offices. But we go into secure mode, and that's just standard operating procedures, correct?
Yes, and let me tell you, with this particular committee, which I think is probably long overdue that we needed, there is a statement that we need to write that it's all confidential.
Yes.
It's a lot of information. A lot of it is just what if scenarios. You know, if this individual comes, what can it be to our community? We've already been called twice on emergency meetings on individuals, right? So it's a really good committee. It's really good communication. When you're getting the FBI involved and all the other agencies that have resources that are way beyond our scope. I mean, completely way beyond our scope. But they may not necessarily be related to students of ours. They could just be individuals that could potentially have risk. And so we have a really, really good, robust communication with them. So much so that our chief of City of Laredo chief of police, our chief of police, they're always in constant communication. And a lot of times they just let us know, hey, this is happening. There's no risk to your location, but we want to let you know. And so we, as an abundance of caution, will put a school on secure mode just to be prepared. It may not have anything to do with our campus, but we just want to be above and beyond what the protocols call for.
And also the beauty of this is safety, like we said, is within the whole district, but it's not only that, it's these communications and these relationships that we've built with these outside agencies that are willing and able to help us. And then we've already had instances where I've been able to get on the phone with one of these officers from an outside agency and say, you know what, this has just happened. And he's like, I'm already at the house. And so we have that communication to where whenever we have any incidents that they're willing and ready to help us. So then goes on to our own behavior threat assessment teams, in which we have in our district. We have one at every campus. We're actively looking for the LPC to monitor and do that right now. That's me. And so each campus has a trained team. These teams have to go through a Texas School Safety Center 8-hour training to be on the team. And so this is something that currently we have through a program, Navigate 360, but the state is going to most likely mandate by next year that it is on one of their programs that is free of charge, which is a great thing. But it's a new system and it's a new program. And so we were selected one of 15 districts in the state to be part of their phase 2 of the pilot program. And so we will be beginning that in January so that we are familiarized with that new system.
So that's the campus behavioral threat assessment, that form, that report that has to be filled out. That's what you're talking about. It's a one person?
So we're held to a different standard now because of what's happened in other communities. Georgia more recently, where we know what happens. You have trouble at one district or campus, you end up moving somewhere else.
Right.
So we are now held to a higher standard to notify. We are now having to make sure that that information goes to the next school district. So the state has done a very good job of kind of centralizing that, because the way the system was, you know, we were having to send information. We don't know if they received it. In this particular case, now there's going to be a clearinghouse for us to do that. So to answer your question, every campus has somebody that's certified through the training that is required.
So yes, it's actually a team. So the basis for the behavior threat assessment team is that there's no one person that's going to be making these decisions about a student. It's going to be a committee at that campus with our guidance, of course. But so they're working together to, so whenever there is a threat that happens, correct? This team will then do an assessment, which based on NTAC. That assessment will then determine whether there's a behavior plan or a management plan for that student.
Intervention.
We can talk about it at length, later on, but I'm talking about when your report has to be done, the overload that it places on the employee versus their other duties that are in place, and it just kind of bogs down the entire process. But that's more of an instructional.
Well, the
counselor.
individuals at the campus need to answer some list of questions, they put the information, but this person that we're gonna bring on will be the responsible individual.
And there's no teachers on the team.
Right, I'm not talking about. I'm talking about
Counselors and administrators.
Yeah, talking about
Yes.
counselors.
Yes.
So this individual will be responsible to make sure it gets uploaded to the state level, and then, of course, making sure we're gonna hold them responsible to make sure that they're notifying other districts when these threats move on.
And one of my biggest points for that, and I've already shared it with TA, is that whatever system that they do implement, it has to be something that's feasible for us to actually complete. So it's not adding all those extra duties and time that we already don't have.
Just on a side note, for me, what is considered a behavioral threat?
So there's a screening questions. There's 4 questions that any behavior threat starts with, and once those questions are completed, if they answer yes to any one of those questions, that would deem it. So does the student have access? Does the student have a plan? Does the student make an actual threat to anybody? And then there's another side where it's like, well, are there other behaviors that would cause you to feel that they would need a full management plan? If you answer no to that, then that case closes. If there's yes to that, then you continue on with the rest, which is an 11-question
Give me an
survey.
example, an assault that happens, we would put somebody on it. Now, it doesn't mean that they have to stay on there. The whole purpose is, let's identify them, let's provide interventions, let's provide some support, let's provide it, and then eventually the goal is to exit them, right? Like, they're fine, they're okay, they just needed to get help. But if not, it can overlap from year to year, or they end up going somewhere else, and we need to make sure that that's monitored.
The bottom line, they get support.
Yes.
That's identifying the areas where they need the support.
Exactly, and that is the whole premise of it, is to help our students so that they don't continue on that path of violence.
Just trying to figure out if they're vague, or they're, they're kind of, anything can kind of be.
According to the rule, it is pretty much anything can be.
So if any school has 30, 40 people in a given month.
It would, and so generally speaking, we have about 170 cases that are active in the entire district. So most campuses have 10 to 15 at the most.
And it doesn't have to be on campus, it could be in a situation off campus that we are notified about, and we'll still.
You'll do that. Okay.
And you really think one LPC can handle this?
Well, again, it's the gathering, it's the gathering, the summary of everything, really, at the end of the day. But the more severe cases, this individual is gonna be going, in support of the current LPC.
Just out of there. And the counseling and the teams that are already out there, just giving them that support that they've been needing. And so, we try to do our best and guide them through whenever they need assistance. But it's also giving them that training as well for our district policies and procedures so that they feel more at ease doing it when they're at their campuses.
And the 140 that we identified, a lot of those get exited, like they're not, it's just that in the year, we had that many cases.
Is it gonna, did you say it's gonna be implemented in all campuses? Like each campus is gonna?
Each campus has a team currently.
Already.
From elementary to
Already?
high school, already.
Okay.
That's been going on.
Whether they have cases or not, they're required to have a team.
That's correct.
They're required to have a team, and we know for sure, like you have a database where you know who's on the team and everything.
Yeah, so we're actually trying to have a backup to a backup to a backup to make sure all that documentation is there. So it's inputted into our Sentinel. We're doing it into the card system, as well as database that we're currently keeping. So, yeah, we want to make
Yeah,
sure
I'm
that,
just
and
thinking
then
'cause-
the certifications is the most difficult part because it's given to us by the Texas School Safety Center, which I have no power, control, or a capability to get that information. It's relying on the people that get trained, and then it's one-time training, and it could have been 5-8 years ago that they got trained. So it's that documentation, although the state is working with us and they've done some things to help us.
And how often are you checking this database? Like, do you get a report or?
No, so it has to be updated by, so each campus has what's called an SSCO, Safety compliance officer, a school safety compliance officer. It's an administrator that's in charge of safety at each campus, and they are charged with updating that team. And so I just was meeting with one today and going over how they're going to be doing those different things.
Okay, but
Yeah.
you all do have I mean, I'm just thinking, you know, in the long run, right?
ma'am.
We don't want like this security thing to happen,
Yeah.
right? With a child maybe who just fell through the cracks and then we're gonna be here a year later, 2 years, oh, well, it fell through the cracks, sorry, right? So how can we prevent that? Like, do you have, I know now you're saying that there's somebody at the school and each campus has an administrator, but do you all have like a checks and balances?
So this individual that we're gonna hire will be responsible to make sure that all the certifications are done, all the completions. So they'll have more on their plate than just the.
That's what I said.
Okay, yeah, that's one person is gonna be a lot to
Yeah, so
handle.
eventually, again, there are grants out there that we're gonna be applying for to get more people, but at this point, we gotta start somewhere, like, we don't have it right now.
I
so.
foresee in the future, one LPC at least at each
Oh,
campus.
for sure.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah.
but I
No, no,
do.
you're right,
Yeah.
Peter.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
probably the
Okay.
ultimate, yes,
Yeah.
the ultimate situation. But, yes, ma'am, we'll have checks and balances of that. Again, this is an 8-hour course, so we're asking people to take 8 hours of their, usually in the workday, or sometimes they do it on the weekends to be able to get it done. And so we're, part of their commitment as administrators to get it done.
So we have, part of this database, correct me if I'm wrong, but for every student, and you open a case, and it measures and it tracks, and you have to close it as well, right? Through this, it's a physical database, it's not like a manual database, right?
It's not a manual.
Exactly.
It's computer-based, yes.
Exactly.
It's actually internet-based, yes. So the other thing we have is is something we just started. It's the mental health, mental wellness program for our staff members. It's a collaboration with Pillar. And so this is what I really wanted to talk to everybody about, because this is something that I think is very important. It's something that we share with our law enforcement, because these are our district standard response protocols. These are our standard protocols for any incident. So they're not specific to one type of incident. It could be anything as long as it fits into that category. And this is how we're going to react or respond to it. And it's very important for all of our staff members, which have been trained, all of our students, which have been trained, but it's our outside agencies that would be coming in, or any visitor that's coming to our campus. It's important for them to know also, because this protocol could be called at any time while they're there. So real quickly, I'm going to kind of go over the what and the why. So hold, a hold means we don't want anybody in the hallways, essentially. A hold would be called, for example, there's a fight. And so there's a fight in the hallway and the bell's about to ring. We don't want students getting into the hallways. So we'll put the campus on a hold so that it can get controlled. There's an individual who's having an outburst, could be a parent, could be a visitor, whoever it is, and we don't want our students to be exposed to that. We can call a hold. It could be an animal. So it's happened at campuses where the stray dog comes in and somebody opens the door and lets them in. We can go into a hold to make sure we get that that danger out of the way. So that's why we would call a hold. So that means that we just don't want students in the hallways. That's all it is. Secure. Now, secure is one that we call often, and this is because generally an outside, mostly law enforcement agency, will notify the district of something happening outside of our campus fence line. So it's something happening outside, but it's still in our area. We can be notified, and then we'll make the determination, depending on where it is, how far it is, and what danger it is, whether we want to put the campus into a secure. And something that we've also advanced on is that we're not only, so there could be a secure where it's a hard secure, where we will lock all our gates, nobody comes in, nobody comes out. But also, depending on each individual case and what information we're given, we can have a controlled entry and exit, kind of like a soft secure, where people can still enter and exit, but we're going to be monitoring them a little bit more closely and where and how they can come in to our campus. So, and also what happens oftentimes is in a secure, in all of these protocols, we will notify the parents and the parents and the staff. And so the problem is, especially with when it comes to secure, is that we're depending on an outside agency. We're depending on how they're going to handle that situation. It could be handled in 10 minutes or it could be handled in 3 hours. So depending on how that takes, and that's going to lead us a lot into how quickly that information goes out, as well as what information we can push out, because this may be confidential information that we're getting from an agency that we are not allowed to share. So that's, no, thank you.
And one of the things that's important here is that the reason we're doing kind of like a two-phase approach is We're gonna be very aggressive at the beginning to secure, nobody comes in, nobody goes out. But at the end of the day, if it goes prolonged over an hour or so, we still have to conduct business. We still have to receive bread, milk. Parents have ARD meetings. There are other things that go on that we cannot afford to stop the
It's
operation.
business as usual.
Yes, ma'am, but in a controlled way, right? So, again, if it's a threat that our local law enforcement are contacting us and just letting us know that this is happening, but there is no direct threat to us, we'll convert into a soft, secure. If it's something that's a direct threat, by no means are we gonna lift that. We're gonna stay hard, nobody comes in, nobody goes out.
Right, and this is not to confuse a lockdown.
Very
Secure,
true.
secure mode, our facility, our school is not in imminent danger.
Everything operates normally
It's a proactive
inside.
approach that we
Yes.
take
Yes,
just.
And
as-
generally,
right,
yes,
for
and
side
secure, what we'll
events.
do is just, we want to have everybody inside the building. We're going to use our building as our layer of protection for our students and our staff. So we just don't want anybody outside. We'll bring them in. If they're having recess, whatever it is, they'll come inside the building. Versus a lockdown. A lockdown is now we have a threat on campus and we need you locks, lights out of sight, and we need you in the classroom, and we need you to be in a lockdown mode. And at this point, the law enforcement officer at that campus will take over, and everybody gets put into a lockdown. So it's very, very different.
And one of the things I need to emphasize to everybody in the community is when we give a statement, we want it to be 100% accurate. Speed is not the number one priority here for us. It's to make sure that we're providing the right data, the right information at the time. We probably are depending on outside forces to give us information so that we can give more appropriate statements and all the other items. We don't want to give out a statement and then have to do a revised statement, right afterwards, with the first statement being false. So that's a big priority for us to make sure that it may take a little bit longer, or maybe other entities give out statements. We're going to do it the right way, make sure that it's accurate the first time.
That
I'm
doesn't
glad you
mean
said
we
that.
stop communication. We still
That's correct.
continue
Oh, yes.
constant communication with the community, or with their parents, should I say?
That is correct.
And once we're ready, then we communicate
To the
factual
general public.
information.
Right.
I have a question. Does the media have this available to them, or do they know? I mean, I used to work with the media, so as a media person, I think it would be essential and helpful for them to know the different meanings, right? Because parents call media rooms.
Yes.
If they're not getting information from the district, they're gonna call the media rooms, okay? Or they're gonna ask us. I mean, I'm just throwing it out there as a suggestion, right? To maybe provide this information to them. I do know, right, that you can't, like you said, you have to be very careful with the information that you provide, but also, it's good to provide them with something.
Sure.
You
Yes,
know,
ma'am.
so.
And just to give you a little bit of history on this Center Response Protocols, this is from the I Love You Guys Foundation, which was actually started by a father and mother who lost their child in an active shooter event. She was held hostage, and then the shooter took her life and then took his life. And so they made this their mission. And so they provide this, and this is something that's used not only in UISD, LISD has the same exact protocols, so they have the same exact language. I believe LC has now adopted these as well as their language of protocols. It's used all over the state of Texas, all over the United States. So this is, the idea is to have one language that if I say secure, everybody in the community knows exactly what's going on at that campus. So then I'll go on real quick to evacuate. Of course, that's your fire drill. It could be, and we need to evacuate the students because of fire, as well as any other reason where we may need to evacuate the students. Could be a bomb threat. It could be multiple reasons that we need to. It could be a sewage line bust or a foul odor. We've actually had to do that in the campus, and we do an evacuation. Not to be confused with a reunification. Evacuation means we're just exiting the building. Reunification is totally something different. Shelter is, of course, could be either for hazardous materials or for some sort of weather safety. The beauty of we're always monitoring the weather, and so if there's any severe weather, we'll generally be in a closed situation where we wouldn't have to go into shelter mode. But in the event, we teach our students some general rules and abide by those. And it's for hazardous. We've already met with the fire department on multiple occasions, and we will be relying on what they deem to be the hazard and whether they feel a shelter or an evacuate would be appropriate. Crisis response, so our Sentinel holds our EOP, our track to all our drills. So each drill that is done at a campus is logged in through the system. Door logs by our campus police officers, as well as our campus maps, multiple other things, but that's the majority of what this program that now the state has provided with us to be able to log all this information. So the crisis alert, so of course this is part of response as well. And so in our badges that we now have, you can see a visual representation of what would happen in the event that somebody did use the badge to go into a lockdown. You would have the visual cue of the strobes going off, which we have strobes here. You'd see computer take over, as well as our site responders would see a map with the location and the name of the person who called the protocol. And then the auditory cues are available in those campuses that have been integrated with our PA system. Crisis response, our communication method. So our main communication method is through Parent Square. Any report of any threats or anything that's happening at the campus will send out a letter, and that will be send out a notice, and that will go out through Parent Square, and we send it out as a smart alert, which allows them to receive it as an email, text, as a or through the app as well, or a phone call with a message. And then we also use social media and Facebook. We've also partnered with LPD, the Laredo Police Department, in the Flock Raven system. This is a rapid response to incidents that are happening around the city. And training, this is just listing some of the trainings that either through our department that we provide, that we have, or that our district provides to our teachers, staff throughout the year. And that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ruben. Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Cruz, Mr. Trotman. So due to events, recent events such as terminating services with a private security company, the question has been brought up, is the district in compliance with House Bill 3 and TEA? And I'm here to tell you that we are. We have armed personnel at every campus. We have a police officer plus security guards. We're fully staffed when it comes to the elementary level. We're fully staffed. We have one officer and a security guard at each campus. Middle schools, we're fully staffed as well. High schools, we do have armed police officers there. However, we do have several vacancies there. The absences is the most concerning part. However, my command staff have been plugging in for those absences. They have been replacing the people that they are in FMLA or taking a day. So we have the sergeants covering, we have the lieutenants covering, the captain covering, even myself. So when it comes to the security guard, I know that principals have already been calling, are we getting a replacement for the private security officer? So we've been working on a plan with Dr. Cruz. He approved 8 positions. We're gonna send out those 8 positions out where they were assisting us. For example, Family Center, Tax Office, STEP Academy at high schools. So we started the interviews today in the process. So hopefully by the end of the week, we'll be able to hire those 8 security officers. But just to reassure that, we do have armed security, it's on personnel at each campus as of right now.
And we're hiring from within?
Yes,
From within.
UIZ. And this is UIZ security and UIZ police, that's correct.
Okay. Those 8 vacancies, again, they're
Correct.
gonna be filled, you're not
Yes.
contracting out, it's those
Yes.
UIS.
That's
UIC
UIC.
employees.
Perfect.
Yes. Any questions on
I do have
vacancies?
another question. How often do you provide training, to the security guards or to,
Police?
police?
So this is done on a yearly basis. We take advantage of the summer because it's very hard to train during the year.
Yeah.
Since we're missing, we do have several vacancies, it's very hard for us to, pull them out. So all the training is done during the summer. So we do cover alert, SBLE courses from Texas State, ballistic shield training. We cover, with the security guards, we cover the stop the bleed, CPR, first aid. So every year we start certifying them during the summer, that we take advantage of the summer.
Okay,
So-
and you have control of all the trainings and all of that?
Yes,
You give it to
everything is
HR?
documented, that is correct.
So for the summer, you train all the new hires, you retrain everyone, you take advantage of that. However, throughout the year, we go to conferences, we bring all that information back, we create presentations within our own department, we supply that information, we supply that training. So really our police department or security officers are getting training throughout the year. Because it's always changing.
Correct.
Laws are always changing. There's always different things happening. We learn a lot.
Yeah.
I thank you guys for always going to the conferences and bringing back that information and providing those pockets of trainings throughout the year.
Thank you. And then just to add to that, most of the training is basically at the campus because every campus is different. There's different needs at every campus. Administration is very different. So we send them out, hands-on training there, and they, adapt to that campus and as to the principal's needs, right? So expectations as well. But other than that, I mean, we're on top of training on a yearly basis. We certify our police officers through firearms twice a year. So that's the only one that we have to train twice a year. So we use the in-service days for those trainings.
One of the things I want to add also is that in all the mass casualty events, the fundamental issue has been communication, right? It's communication, even within your own staff. So we meet at least twice a month, at least, maybe in most cases almost weekly. We have our own little safety meeting between the UITPD, our safety department, and we go over different scenarios. We go over what-if scenarios. We go over the behavioral threat that we do on the outside agency. We bring to the police department, these are people that we need to look at. We'll start printing pictures. Let's keep an eye on these individuals. We had the the vulnerability assessment. Even though they're not responsible for the facilities portion of it, they need to be aware that these need to get repaired. Because we also rely on them to let us know, hey, they haven't fixed this door, this lock hasn't been working. So this is everybody's responsibility.
Right.
And all the officers that we have care. They all care about what's going on. They will risk their lives for any one of our students, any one of our staff members. And so that's a real commitment on the department.
And
That is
that's
correct.
not state mandated. That
Yes.
is
No, no,
something
that's-
we
this is within
implemented
us.
as an additional, more
Yes.
layers, like onions.
Yes.
We have extra layers of
It's
security.
about, we don't want it to be about communication.
Right.
Anything
Right.
else, but not communication.
And we don't only do the trainings in-house for our own officers and security officers. We have a responsibility to train all
That's
local,
correct.
state, and federal agencies into our campuses to be able to help us and facilitate any emergency, and that happens throughout the year as well.
So right now we have our K-9 officers, since now they're peace officers, right now we haven't trained with BP and PD as well, so just with the federal government as well. Going back to Ms. Martinez on the grants, we have taken advantage of several grants that we have able to purchase a lot of equipment. That way we don't impact the budget. So thanks to Mr. Garza and his team that we've been able to get those grants. So equipment we have, that's for sure.
I think we recently got, we have one of the best service, they're not revolvers.
Rifles,
They're your service guns
Yes.
in Webb
Pistols.
County.
yes.
And that's a reality.
Yes.
And it maybe that not everyone qualified for that or not everyone applied for that, but we lead in the state of Texas in safety and security and equipment and everything we've implemented, including those shields that we're still, I
Correct.
think, December, this year, this month, at the end of this month, before we go into a break, we're gonna have those shields at all campuses.
All that count, yes,
Right.
that is correct. And also not to forget the units. I mean, we've gotten about 20 brand-new units, thanks to the board that approved, and Mr. Garza's finding money also at the time. So when it comes to units, I mean, we're up, to par for each high school. middle school.
Lida and Sam, because they really,
They
they
find the
look at
money.
us and they're like, oh, no, not again. They support, they really
Yes.
support with a lot
Thank
of
you,
the
Sam.
funding.
Some
And
of
so
them only
I
have
hate
three
to be a
tires.
real big trip killer, right? But I'm just thinking data, right? And what happened. So yes, if we're taking the lead and everything is so awesome and we have so much security and we've invested so much money, right? But then this happened. And I'm asking because I know there's parents who are watching
Yes.
the live, right? Who are not able to be here today, and everybody has questions in regards to the iView security incident that happened. The security guards, obviously, those from iView you mentioned were signing in,
Correct.
right? Okay. So you can see there, right? Obviously, the system, the way it was defaulted.
So let me just add a little bit to that. Let's not forget that this company has been here for 15 years, right? He has been through two prior police chiefs, two superintendents. We have never had any issues with this particular company. When I came on board, I even required for them to start writing, submitting a time card, because we didn't have time cards at that time. So my question was, how are we accounting for these people or paying for these services We don't know for a fact if they're showing up to work or not. So that we started, and then now we start submitting time cards. But I mean, they've been here for 15 years, so the same procedures have been followed. The procedures, just so you know, is they're at the campus level, right? So there were one for each high school, and their mainly job was at the gate, right? But sometimes we do have excessive absences, and principals need the help, and I don't blame them. They need the help. So they will advise their sergeant, hey, Aaron is going to be out a week. Can you ask for help? So the sergeant will call our supervisor, which is the dispatcher, Juan Morales. Mr. Morales will contact the company, and the company will send the assistance, right? So at the department level where I'm at, we have a list of vendors. We ensure that those vendors are in compliance. I'm not, I'm not responsible to see they submitted the stuff they need to submit to whoever department. My thing is the contractor is there, the approved vendor is there, we use the vendor. For example, we use vendors for, fixing the cars, mechanical work, painting. We don't go and say, hey, he's your mechanic, licensed mechanic. We don't. We entrust that he is, right? So that just in our level is just, we have a vendor, we use the vendor, and that's it. In this case, the company was like a staffing company. They were getting, that needed 2 or 3 security guards for certain days at certain campuses, and they would facilitate the employee, right? Like you said, they will show up in uniform, but you entrust that you're not gonna question him. He's in uniform. He's signing in. He's legit, right? At any moment, was anybody placed in harm's way? I mean, or any safety risk? No, I can attest to that. Unfortunately, I mean, this is a very unique situation that we have never experienced before, and it's being addressed as we walk through this. But I can guarantee you that, I mean, I didn't see anybody being, mistreated by one of these individuals, because at the end, most of these people were at the front gate. And aside from that, we use them for construction, we use them for a fire wash, not only for campuses.
Okay.
And I
So
wanna-
just for the record, the police department had no responsibility in making sure that that they had the criminal backgrounds and all of that.
Like I said, they were an approved vendor.
Yeah.
We don't question approved vendors.
Okay.
We just use them as needed.
Perfect. Thank you for that.
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
We do have history, since the chief is correct, the vendor has been with us for a while. And reviewing some of the history, that we do have communications with the company when HR would deny them and when HR would approve under certain circumstances. Again, I agree with the board members, I agree with the public. My children are already out of the system. I would be concerned right now that we had this happen, right? But the vendor knew all of our controls, and these individuals, he did not send them through the controls. We need to tighten that up.
Definitely, we don't want to be the next Uvalde.
But we do have
And I
history
assure you
where he would send them, they'd go through the vetting process, HR would contact them, they'd contact him, tell him, this guy can work for you, he's not working for UISD.
And it's also very important to know that these security officers, even though they were through a third-party vendor, they still didn't have straight line of or direct access to our campuses, because they would still have to get checked at the door.
So
Correct?
I would say like 80% of the time they were used for the guard checks. However, in several occasions they had access to inside. They were using them in the hallway cafeteria, because they were missing 2 or 3 security guards, UISD security guards. So they need, they have the boots inside. So they will request additional assistance. So they will send additional private securities to assist that particular campus for that particular time. So what the principal at the campus does with them is really, it's their call. For example, STEP Academy, he has the need. He doesn't have a guard shack. However, he uses that security inside wherever he needs them. I don't know. I cannot tell you if he places him at the gym or the cafeteria. I don't have that information, but it's up to the campus discretion, pretty much.
Administrator. Okay,
Yes.
so I think that's the cracks that we need to fix. I did share a message with Dr. Cruz earlier this week of a message I had received in regards to that their parents and administrators and teachers, were upset because these security guards were, like you said, right? Maybe it wasn't directly your fault because, well, you're over here, you're not at the school. And they were using these security guards to have direct contact with these kids, right? And so, yeah, I mean, you can understand the frustration, right, of the
Yes, ma'am.
parents. And so, again, thank you all for everything that you do.
Thank
But we really need to do better. I mean,
Yes, ma'am.
a lot better. You can never rely on trust. Never. I mean, even now, with things that are moving so fast, AI, right? You see this guy who was an Ivy League student who just killed a CEO, right? And
Yes.
he looked like he was an all around good kid. So you can never trust. Never. We need to get that out of our minds that we trust.
Yes,
No,
ma'am.
that's unacceptable. We have to, like Mr. Flores said, we need to pretend as if we have defects in our system. We can't be going on a day by day as everything is pretty in pink and we have, the best equipment. Yes, we might have, right? But we always have to be a step ahead of the game. And how are we a step ahead of the game? By not trusting and not letting our guard down, because that's what happened. And like you said, it might not be completely your fault because you, again, are trusting that these are approved vendors.
That's correct.
But as a person who's in charge of security and safety of our students, because that's who they're going to come for, and that's who they're coming for, unfortunately, right? You cannot trust. So that's just my advice to you is keep your guard up, and if somebody's not doing their job, then you have to be 100 times ahead of them. And if they're not, then call them out, right? Because at the end of the day, really, they're going to come after you. So
Correct.
that's
Thank
just
you.
my advice to you.
Thank you so much.
Well, I appreciate the presentation. I know, considering, you know, most current situation, it's important. We've done these presentations before in our workshop at length, just to inform the community of how safe of everything we've applied for, everything we've implemented within, especially the last 2 years, year and a half, within our district. So I appreciate this, as you know, as a chief of police, as the head of security, safety. All eyes are on you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Salazar.
I also want to add, communicating with DPS, that we'll be providing a short training for our police officers in this coming in service.
Okay. And most importantly, when something like this happens, it's important to take accountability, just the way every single one of these departments, including, our superintendent, take the accountability, put in the safety nets of what needs to happen to prevent this from happening again. And I know you already started, and I know that you're going to take extra measures, as you did when you're implementing. You see areas of weakness, you see areas you can improve in, and you've done this, throughout your tenure. Continue to do that. Internal audits within your own department. Eliminate the threats, eliminate possible, anything,
Yes,
because
ma'am.
it's you're the first line of defense for the entire district.
Yes,
So thank you for this presentation. Thank you for being here. Standing here alone is taking that accountability. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Four C.
Okay, next item is
4C.
4C.
4C. Okay, 2024 results-driven accountability RDA report.
Good evening, members of the board, Dr. Cruz, and audience present today. My name is Maria Arambula Ruiz, and I'm the director for bilingual education. This evening, it'll be myself and two of my colleagues that will be presenting for their departments. So recently we received the 2024 Results-Driven Accountability Report, which basically provides indicators and information on student performance for different domains, which are the academic achievement, post-secondary readiness, and disproportionate analysis. And it is for the programs for bilingual education, other special pops, which in the other special pops, we look at the McKinney-Vento, foster, and military-connected students. And we also look at the population for special education. And at the end of each of the programs, we have a performance level summary that is provided as to how the students are doing. In this particular report, what we want to see is a number that is lower because there's a scale of 0 through 4. So the lower the number, the better that the department and the students are doing. So when we look at bilingual education, we want to go ahead and focus in the area of the performance level, the cut score that the TA puts, and also the rate of the performance of each student. We look at the areas for indicators 1 all the way down to indicator number 7, and we're looking at STAR, and we're looking at student performance. When we look at indicator 8 and 9, we are looking at TELPA's results, and indicator 10 and 11, we're looking at dropout and graduation rates, and indicator number 12 looks at our emerging bilingual students with dyslexia representation and how they are identified in the program in comparison to all. So we look at 3 domains: domain number 1, academic achievement; domain number 2, post-secondary readiness; and domain number 3, disproportionate analysis. So what we look at here is in the performance level, we want to see a low number. So do we have some areas that need improvement? Yes, we do, and I highlighted them in blue, and those are the areas that we're going to be looking at to be able to improve, and because what we all want to be perfect, and the perfect number is 0. So we have some areas that we need to work on. So at the end, when we measure all of those indicators, we are giving a performance level, and the performance level for bilingual education was determination level 1. So it is a low number, but where do we want to be? We want to be at a 0. So we have the comparisons of the indicators from 0 through 4. There are no 4s. This year we had 2 areas that were 3s, and this was in the area of 8th grade social studies. We had 2 indicators at a level 2, 4 at a level 1, and then 17 that were at a level 0. So this score right here is telling us that we're doing good, and there's no submission to make any reports to TEA. Bilingual students are doing well. We go on to the next program, which is our other special pops with Ms. Adriana Ramirez.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Adriana Ramirez, Executive Director for Federal Programs. And I am going to talk just a little bit about other special populations. That includes foster, foster, our homeless population, and military-connected students. Just like with bilingual, we have STAR information for 3rd through 8th, and they're looking at mathematics, reading, science, and social studies. And they do give us a rate, and if you look at our performance level, we are looking for a low number. So in each category, we did have a performance level of a 0. And then we continue with EOC, which would be our high schools, and it's Algebra 1, Biology, U.S. History, and English 1 and 2. And at the same time, looking at our 3 different populations, our performance levels also were at a 0. They are looking at dyslexia through these populations, but it is at a report only at this time. So it's something that they're monitoring. We also have graduation rates that they look at, with a performance level at a 0 for all 3 populations, and annual dropout rate as well. So when you're talking about these populations, if you look across, we did receive, for the 10 different areas that we're looking at, we did receive a 0. So they are doing very well. Also, we also get another area that they look at, the federally required elements. And so for state performance plan compliance indicators, we have a performance level of 0. Valid, reliable, and timely data, it's a 0. Status of uncorrected and noncompliance was also a 0, and financial audits were a 0. So again, that is what we're looking for. The information is, we're on at 0. It's really good for these areas that they're looking at. And again, we attribute it to our teachers, our administrators, and to the departments that support all of our families and students. Thank you. Thank you. And 20, oh, D,
One more, we have one more
2025.
presenter.
Oh, I'm
for
sorry,
this
go ahead.
Agenda item.
Want me to move it? There.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Ms. Martinez, Ms. Molina, Laura de los Santos, Executive Director for Special Ed. So in our report card, in Special Ed, we have 18 different indicators with 3 different domains. Again, we're very happy to report that we are at a determination level 1. The different indicators measures all the way from STAR, participation, our dyslexia students, exit rate, graduation, participation, even the discipline referrals. So at the end, if you want to go down, Mr.
Yes.
Flores, please.
The next slide, you mean?
Yes, this is what we're talking about. So it's divided by the different dimensions. For example, this is special ed STAR, alternate participation. Some are report only, just as my colleagues reported. Basically, from the 18 indicators, there's 3 areas that I want to address with everyone today. So less is better, right? So our focus is a 0. Well, there's 3 areas that we received a 3 on. That's what we're going to focus on. So in science and social studies is an area that even last year we had a little bit of difficulty, and we recognize that across the district and even across the state, it has been an area. So what are we putting into place? Now that we have the basic plan and that we have somewhere to start with, our plan includes pre and post assessments, professional development for our teachers so that we can focus on those TEKs that focus on the areas that the students are struggling in. And then, of course, our periodic PLCs so that we can make sure that we're monitoring the implementation. Another area that we've struggled in since last year, and we have seen some gains, but that we're continuing to monitor is our indicator 9, which is our little students, our 3, 4, and 5-year-old students who participate in special ed, but because for the most part, they're in a unit, we can't pull them out to provide them the services. And therefore, since they spend a lot of time in the unit, the state garnishes a level of 3 for that. So we're hoping that later, if our district does go with a 3-year-old program, that'll really help us impact that certain category. Yes, well, there's the ones we talked about. So here is the summary. So basically, in our department, we've made a lot of gains. We service our students from 3-year-olds all the way to high school, and then of course even after to our terror center. We've made noticeable gains, noticeable achievements, but at the end we're very happy that for the last 2 years we have been able to have a determination level of 1, because prior to that we had a determination level of 3 where we had to respond and provide a plan. So with the different plans and strategies that we've put into place, we're at a 1 this year again. So we're very happy to report that. Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. D, we can move on, right? 2025, 2026 budget calendar.
Good evening. What I'm bringing to you is our budget development calendar for 25-26. This calendar includes key budget dates and deadlines and incorporates budget activities related to budget development, such as projected enrollment, campus staffing information, allocations, and other pertinent information. So when you see here, what I tried to do was I highlighted it in like a orange color, kind of like the meetings with the board, right? So December 10th, here we are with the calendar. January 14th is our next budget workshop, and this is some things that we would bring to you. February 4th is the a board workshop. And so at that point, like, we don't want to be constantly pulling, having another meeting unless it's required, right? 2 key things for this year is January 14th in green, the legislative session begins. We are aware that many bills have been filed, and so we'll be tracking those and bringing them to you and telling you the status of them. And then on June 2nd, that legislative session ends, and hopefully they don't have any special sessions, but we'll be prepared for that. So As you can see, the bottom part of this calendar, we start getting to the summer months. And by this time, we should have campus budgets, department budgets, putting all that information for you all to see. And then June, July, this is where we expect maybe some additional workshops to kind of tighten up the loose ends, anything that we need to do to comply with any new laws that came out. And then in August, that's when we would actually take the proposed budget to you for adoption and a tax rate. And then we have to do our calculations and publish, the notice and all those other things. So by September 1st, right, we hope to have an approved budget, and then we would be starting the new year again with that approved budget. So
Thank you. I appreciate the calendar. I know we've been talking about setting up a calendar for a while. We were kind of scrambling last time, to get all that situated.
Yes.
Especially because it's a lot to review.
Yes,
For
yes.
every department to dive into. So thank you for doing that.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. E, presentation of agreement between Texas Workforce Commission and United ISD employees.
Good evening again. As you know, we've been having challenges of finding custodians, bus drivers, food service help in different areas. And so we've been scratching every possible way to look for candidates. We increased our pay not too long ago. And so we came across with Texas Workforce Commission, a really unique program that I think that can help temporary fill as like an apprenticeship job, where they pay the individuals, and they'll be responsible. They'll vet them. Then we'll also vet them in a process, and then they get interviewed by the certain groups, and then they will work with us hopefully for 90 days. But I'll have Mike talk a little bit about it because it affects mostly his department. We do have a guest today from Texas Workforce Commission called, her name is Crystal Ramirez, and she helped us put this program together and shared about what they can offer us. So it's a win-win. They need to fill the slots. We are willing to fill them. And so they will be like extra help when we have them. And then hopefully they join our group.
Welcome, Ms.
you.
Ramirez.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And again, I want to apologize to Crystal. I told her it would be 1 hour, so it's okay. She's going to have trust issues with me now, so.
Yeah, don't
She's been
trust.
great. She's been great. So we're excited about this opportunity. Again, it's state agency to school district, right? So there is a whole vetting process that they go through. And essentially what this is to give somebody a chance, a second chance at a career potentially. And in most of the areas that we have high needs are custodial services, food services, transportation. Although these individuals would not be allowed to drive any of our vehicles because of liability, they can at least train along somebody that does, see if they're interested, and then we can bring them on as full-time employees. And in the interim, if they happen to want to work in the transportation department, for example, we'll bring them in as monitors above and beyond our staffing, right? So that's the other part, is that we may be capped at our staffing levels, hired individuals. Well, these would be extra people that can help us be vigilant and so forth and so on. And if they like the process, then they can be full-time employees. We can probably train them to get their CDL while they're in the internship. And again, this will all be on the nickel of the Texas Workforce Commission. And after 90 days, then they become full-time employees. So I'll let Crystal talk a little bit more about the services.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Hi, good evening. I hope everybody's still awake. Thank you so much for being here to make an impact on the community. And my name is Crystal Ramirez. I'm one of the business service representatives at Workforce Solutions for South Texas, where we do prioritize our veterans. So for any veterans that are in here today, thank you so much for your service. And also I want to let you all know and remind you all kindly that we are a nonprofit organization. So in me being here today, we're not tapping into anybody's budget. We're solely here to help the community and the people here in our own community. Mr. Canales and Mr. Garza have been definitely very great. We are working together on a work experience program. That's how it's called, work experience, where for 3 months, a job seeker with barriers and that passes all the United Independent School District background and all the requirements, work for United Independent School District, but are under Workforce's payroll. After the 3 months, if these participants exceed and meet United Independent School District needs, and there is not anything that you guys think might fall in between the cracks, then you guys are welcome to enroll them in your W-2. And complete the hiring process. Other than that, nowhere in the agreement does it state that you guys are obligated to keep these individuals. Now, our caseworkers are working diligently to make sure that we don't just send anybody. They are fully aware of the high expectations United Independent School District has. Not only they as mothers and fathers, but as my mother myself, I would want to make sure that the people that you guys are getting referred are quality people and not just a working body. Yes.
I appreciate that. I really appreciate that you're going to vet them out before even bringing them to the table for us to interview. So thank you for that. We appreciate the partnership. I know our HR department, along with federal programs and everyone else, gets involved in the job fairs. And we host those, and we have, like, every department gets involved, and still at that we still have vacancies. So to have this program fill in those gaps for us, it's crucial. And to know that you have high quality employees coming our way, it's even more important. So thank you.
Yes, and thank you for mentioning that, Ms. Molina. Actually, on December 3rd, we had a job fair in collaboration with United Independent School District at the Family Matters, in which UISD was actually having an ESL class. And a lot of these participants were interested on the work opportunity some of your management had there. You guys had child nutrition, transportation, and custodio. And
Yes.
they were immediately directed to our WIOA booth so they could see if they qualify, especially if they're low income or they have a barrier or no GED. They're able to help them there get their GED and build their way up. And by this 3-month experience, they're able to do that and actually break those barriers and have a limitless experience in the work field.
Amazing. Thank you so much for being
I
here
have
tonight.
a question, I'm
Thank
sorry.
you.
Do we have like a certain amount of individuals who are going to be in the program? Is there a max, a minimum?
We do not. However, it's as they come. Our caseworkers do their best to outreach as many people as they can in their community. And again, we don't want to go with quantity. We want to go with quality. So
Quality.
anybody that we send
Perfect.
to you all, we want to make sure that they're serious about this opportunity, not just because it's a 3 months hands-on and they could put it on their resume, but because they want to build a career out of this. They want to get out of where they're at and exceed.
It's really based on the need, the demand.
The need
Right.
and las ganas que tiene el participante.
And really
Thank you.
important, we're the largest employer that has an agreement with Texas Workforce, so we're excited about that opportunity. And for us, it's a captive audience. We're excited about being able to get as many. We've already asked them, challenged them, bring us all the individuals that are eligible so we can bring them on. We did get 2 names last week. We started the vetting process on that, and so hopefully we're on the right track.
Perfect.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Yes, I'd
you.
like to thank the Texas Workforce Commission for this opportunity, and definitely it's going to enhance our community, also identify individuals who can become gainfully employed with us here at United ISD. So thank you for that.
On a side note, I want you to know Crystal's a success story, a former UISD graduate from United South. And so I wanted to make sure that she's here advocating for us as a district.
That is amazing. Thank you, and congratulations. Moving on.
5A.
Agenda item 5, the following items are to be reviewed by members of the board with recommendations for action to be made at the next regular board meeting. Do I read them all, A through J?
Just one at a time, Mrs. Molina.
Okay. A, monthly disbursements.
Good evening, Ms. Molina. My name is Rosa Cabello, Director of Accounting, and tonight we bring to you action item, monthly disbursements for the month of November. Do you have any questions in regards to disbursements?
I do not. Thank you so much for
Thank
being
you.
here. B, plan of finance.
Yes, for this presentation, we do have our financial advisors, the Herina Financial Consulting, who are providing some financial insights into the current state of United ISD for some future projects that will be happening.
Welcome.
We have Robert Tijerina with Tijerina Financial Consulting, LLC.
Welcome, Mr. Tijerina.
Good morning. Good evening.
Good evening. Good night.
That was a whole day. Like I say,
That was a whole-
part of being in the meeting.
That was a whole day there. Good
You've been
morning.
here all day, I'm
Yeah,
taking.
But now I got the crowd relaxed a bit. So I appreciate it. Again, Ms. Molina, for the record, Robert Tijerina.
Thank you for being here.
With Tijerina Financial Consulting, we are the school district's financial advisor. Ms. Martinez and Dr. Cruz and staff, good evening. Again, I'm here to present the plan of finance for the maintenance tax note series 2005 financing. And as you know, maintenance tax notes is a financing instrument that can be used by the school district. The school districts in years past has issued maintenance tax notes. We did one earlier this year in the last few years, and as one as late as early as 2009. So some of the projects that the administrative staff has put together are the capital improvement projects. We have campus technology and athletics. Capital improvement projects total about 9.9 million, and campus technology about 5 million. Athletics for about 140,000, for a grand total of 15.1 million. And then you have the financing costs on top of that, about 89,000, for a grand total about 15,210,000. Now, maintenance tax note financings are used, the funds are used to maintain, repair, renovate existing facilities, equipment, vehicles, items. So part of this list is some of these items, not exactly these items, but there's been other projects taken on in years past that we've used maintenance tax notes financing. And again, this list is about 99% final. It's preliminary. It will be finalized at the board meeting January the 22nd. And all the board is considering today is just allowing us to move forward, to the board meeting December the 18th. And at that meeting, December the 18th, is when the board will take action to say, work together with Dr. Cruz and the staff and bring back a financing that will be final on January the 22nd. Now, if we turn, we go to the next page. On page 40, we have the existing maintenance tax notes financings. On this column, principal, interest, and total, a total financing about 47.9 million, interest about 12.1, for a grand total of $60 million. Again, the M&O debt, maintenance tax notes financings, have been issued by the school district. The revenue comes in through the maintenance and operation tax rate side. The district is in a great position this current fiscal year. In the district will pay off the series 2009 and 2020 M&O debt. Those two financings, the original amount totaled about 23.8 million. And paying those off, you notice the debt goes from 8.8 to 5.7. So the proposed financing, about 15.2 million, we're looking at principal, interest, and total. It will not impact the current fiscal year 2025. The first payment will occur in fiscal year 2026, and we have roughly about $1.4 million. And then we have a grand total beginning fiscal year 2026, about 7.2, and then you start seeing gradually the reduction as debt payment is being paid off, financings are being paid off also. Now, again, we're estimating an interest rate of about 4.7%. Again, on January the 22nd, if the item is approved by the board, the funds will be received by the school district on February the 20th.
I'm sorry, I'm going to take
It's
off.
okay,
'cause
I
I'm-
completely understand.
Yeah.
Don't worry, no need to
I'm sorry.
apologize. Now, we go to the timetable, again, the December the 10th workshop. The next item, Mr. Martinez, who's also in the audience with Winstead Bond Counsel for the district, will discuss the reimbursement resolution. And again, both items, my item along with the reimbursement resolution, will be considered on December the 18th. The bids, the interest rate, will be due by the banks on January the 21st. So the placement agent will submit the plan of finance audits the last 3 years of the school district, submit them out to about 50 banks in-state and out-of-state. So the bids will be due January the 21st. We'll come back, Mr. Martinez and I, on January the 22nd for the board to consider the financing as final. And if that item is approved, the district again will receive the funds on February the 20th. Now, the working group, we have the issuer, United ISD, financial advisor, your co-bond counsel is Winstead, and Mr. Martinez is in the audience. CRD Law Group, the placement agent, FHN Financial, the purchaser, and the paying agent will not be finalized until the bids are due on January the 21st. So whoever submits the lowest interest rate will have that filled in on the 22nd and present that to the board.
Perfect. Thank you so much. I do appreciate you being here.
Very
Thank
welcome.
you.
Thank you. And I appreciate the opportunity to represent the school district as your financial advisor.
Thank you.
I'd like to point out to you, Ms. Molina, that I did make Robert sign in and Dan, and they're wearing a visitor's
Yes.
badge.
Oh, good, 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 good.
Good morning.
And he's wearing it proudly too, so thank you, Mr. Tejeda. Next item, B, plan of finance.
Actually, we're on C.
Oh,
The-
so the next item,
Oh,
Ms.
yes.
Molina, is a resolution declaring intention to reimburse certain expenditures. So we
Mhm.
do have, what happens is, as of right now, knowing that this financing is gonna happen, we get permission from the board to start putting orders in. Like the student computers, they do take some time to come in. There's no use for them to come in after the school year starts, right?
Right.
Next year, so that's what the resolution does for us. And so that will be presented next week for y'all's approval, and then we can work with the different individuals here to start getting their orders in or start some of these projects that we have listed in that real long list.
Good, good. I appreciate that. Thank you. D, resolution regarding review of investment policy and strategies.
Yes, good evening, Ms. Molina. The Division of Finance required by the Texas Public Funds Investment Act has to bring our active policies on our investments and our active strategies to you annually. So we're bringing them in, and we have to address that with a resolution. The resolution just states that in this particular year, we are not making any changes to our investment policies, and we're not making any changes to our investment strategies. The board also has to approve for our investment officers where we can get trained. We're required to get 10 hours if it's our first year and 8 hours every 2 years after that. So we're not making any changes to the list of approved training sites that we have to go to.
Okay.
And then the last thing we have to let you know is that we have a list of brokers and the board approves those brokers. We are only making one change to the broker. This is kind of long, so I don't want to go through all these
Are we removing
sheets.
someone or we're adding?
We're adding a local broker, NWA Financial Resources, is Jerry Garza. He's gonna, we kind of never really had a local broker before. So, and then we're correcting the name on Duncan Williams. Like, we've worked with them in the past, but they've merged with South State. So now they're South State Duncan Williams. And really, those are the only changes. I do have to let you know that on this resolution, Lyda Benavides, our Chief Financial Officer, is an investment officer. Myself, Samuel Flores is an investment officer. Rosa Cabello, the Director of Accounting, is an investment officer. Felipe Jimenez, our Fiscal Operations Administrator, is an investment officer. And new to our team is going to be Norberto Martinez Jr., our Budget Manager, and that'll make up our investment team.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
E, awarding bids, proposals, qualifications, and extensions. Ms. Jackson?
Good evening, Ms. Molina, administration staff, Dr. Cruz. We have one RFP for your consideration, RFP 2024-030, and that's for our fuel. And so we're recommending the 6 vendors listed, and the way this RFP works is we have the pool of vendors, and as we order truckloads of fuel, we get a daily quote, and then that's what the vendor we go with.
Perfect. We go with the lowest, right? Yes. Okay, perfect.
I'm
That's
sitting
it?
up here, yes,
Oh,
that's
okay.
it. You're good.
All
But
good.
I'm next
Thank you.
also, so.
Okay. So E, JOC 005-2024, replacement of HVAC, HVAC equipment at various campuses.
So the recommendation here is to award this JOC contract to Leindecker Construction in the amount of $1,386,980, which includes $125,000 contingency allowance. And these are HVAC equipment to be replaced at 9 different campuses listed there.
This was part of the plan that from last year, right, Mr. Garza, that we were talking about?
Yes, ma'am. There was a part of the list that we had shared with you.
Right.
But of course, it was a larger amount than this.
Yes,
But this is at
it's
least something that
You've
we can
narrowed
get
it
done.
down.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, good.
And these items are on the financing that the board is about to approve, if approved.
Perfect.
Yeah, the maintenance tax notes that were just presented.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you're gonna have G2, right?
Yes.
Okay, TIPS JOC 23010402-5196, Clark, building roof restoration.
So this JOC contract, we're recommending award to American Contracting and Roofing in the amount of $1,757,000, which includes an $80,000 contingency allowance to be used by the district. This also will be part of the maintenance tax notes.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry to ask, but I have to. What happened? I'm not familiar with the why this went out for bids.
What happened with what, I'm sorry?
The roofing.
Oh, this is for the
restoration?
existing Clark, or Clark?
Good evening, Ms. Molina,
Good
members of the management, Dr. Cruz. So the reason we have this project, what we're proposing, Ms. Molina, is back about 6 months ago, if you may recall, the board retained the services of ADM Group to do a facilities needs assessment district-wide. So they analyzed all our properties, including the former Clark Elementary School. I believe we had discussed, excuse me, the possibility of repurposing the building. Obviously, now with the new Clark Elementary School, the building is not occupied. So one of the plans that we had was to eventually convert it into a staff development, a family services center for the community, and many other ideas that we're still contemplating. But as part of that assessment, the architects and engineers who looked at all our buildings recommended, if we're going to continue to utilize that facility, to start with the basic protection of weatherproofing the building, which will start with the roof part of it. Now, that is an original part of the building. It's about 35 years old. So this roof, it's already pretty much due to wear and tear, needs to be resurfaced and repaired. So we're going to start with that part. Then we're going to go into the HVAC systems and then the internal renovations to convert it from an elementary school into whatever purpose the administration and the board determines will be the best use of that facility. It is a very good building, but needs to be remodeled and repaired. So what we did with purchasing department, we went through the co-op, which is TIPS program, similar to the buy board. And they bid this competitively throughout the state. We received this very competitive proposal. And now that the building is not occupied, we can go ahead and implement it. It's about a 3 to 4 month project.
That was my next question. What's the ETA on that?
Yes, it'll be, and the reason we're bringing it this time, take opportunity before the beginning of the
Following school year.
of the year, the calendar year, all prices for materials are going to go up between 8 to 10%. And that was before the proposed tariffs.
Yeah.
Because a lot of these materials come from other place in the country, throughout the market internationally. So we're trying to have this hopefully for your consideration. If it's approved, then immediately it is included, Sam, on the maintenance tax notes,
Yes, sir.
right?
Yes, sir.
So it's one of the projects that
On the
is
financing that was just
And
presented.
we have a plan for the utilization of this building, right? Yes?
Yeah,
Okay.
we've been talking about it, yeah.
Yes, and that's something that will come present to the board once it's all
Mhm.
finalized. I know in January, ADM architects will be making a presentation to the Board of Trustees district-wide on the facilities needs assessment that Mr. Garza and all our team worked on about 6 months ago. So all those prices had to be updated,
Yeah, no.
unfortunately, and nothing
There's
came down.
limitations
Everything
on-
went
on
up,
those quotes too. I understand.
right? So
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for answering the questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jackson. H, resolution regarding employee compensation for emergency closure due to water line repairs on November 18, 2024 at Clark Middle School.
Good evening, Ms. Molina. I'm back. So we had 3 items today. So as you know, on November 18th, we did have to have emergency closure at Clark Middle School due to a water line that broke, which was under the cement. So it's going to take the whole day to do that. So we're coming to the board So that way next week they can approve the compensation for those employees that did not officially work that day but need to get compensated.
Right, I
And they'll
know,
follow
we
through
had
on
other campuses that had, similar, I'm not gonna say exactly, it wasn't similar, I'm sorry, let me take that back, that we had issues a few months ago, that we had to close those campuses too for the remainder of the day. I don't think we've approved those yet, are there
Yes.
in here?
Yes, those went
Okay.
last month.
That was, okay, thank you so much for that. Okay, I appreciate that, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
We did I,
Correct.
and J, request for members in reference to use of Board of Trustees discretionary funds for various campuses and departments.
Yes, Ms. Molina, there are no additional requests other than what's in your packet.
Okay,
We'll be taking
perfect.
those for next
Thank you.
week's approval.
Thank you, Mr. Garza. And before we adjourn, I just, I appreciate everyone staying here as long as you did. And, your presence here, all of our administration, I know this is it's a tough meeting. It really is. But, it's important that for our community to know that even though, we've had this issue, and trust me, as a mom, I have 3 kids within the school district. This is not easy, and I think you all have heard directly from me already. My concerns, it's upsetting. It's upsetting, but to know that we're eliminating that threat and we're bringing it in house, and we're nowhere near, we're far from even Uvalde. So to even say that, it's not accurate. I want to make sure we don't pass that to the community and cause that kind of instill that fear, because we're not. Our schools are safe. Your children, when you drop them off in the morning, are safe. We have many layers of security, and now identifying this, we're adding extra layers of security. So I appreciate everyone here, every single department, including our superintendent, that's continuing to do this investigation. So thank you. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you.